This is a little different for me. I did want to recognize Stella, even though she's not here. For park board members who don't know, I think all of us do. We've been around long enough. Stella is to EQAC what Bill is to us, longstanding member. Really done a lot of good leadership there. So wanted to recognize her contributions and support, and thank all of you for your support of the Park Authority. We appreciate you guys as advocates and allies on a lot of issues. Understand that maybe this budget request wasn't all of what you're looking for, but it's a very good first step. And I think, as you'll see in these presentations we got queued up for you, the things we asked for will really address kind of dire needs that we have in the system. So I'll shut up there and turn over to you, John.
Thanks, Kyle. Good evening, everyone. My name is John Burke. I'm the Natural Resources Branch Manager at Fairfax County Park Authority. I think I know most of the folks in the room here. It's nice to be able to talk with you all again. The last time we spoke at this, or had this meeting in 21, I spoke to you all about general updates from the Natural Resources Branch, kind of the accomplishments to date, things like that. And the feedback that I received from EQAC was that you all wanted to hear more about the challenges we were facing and what we were coming up against as far as potential issues or budget restrictions or just concerns broadly in the natural resources realm. So we'll be talking about two of those big ones today, bamboo being the main one, but we'll also be touching on IMA and invasive plants per your request. In addition to that, I'll also be just briefly highlighting one of the major new programs that EQAC has supported in the Natural Resources Branch, the Landscape Legacy Program, and just sort of report out to you all on what we've been up to and what we've been able to accomplish in the year since that program has been awarded. So with that, we'll move on here. And if you've been part of the, let's see, no, I don't think my clicker is working. The batteries. That's good.
You mean?
Excellent. Thank you. All right. So since we are talking about bamboo, some of you may have seen this slide in a previous POS meeting or talked to me about this. The bamboo, as you all know, running bamboo, the ordinance was passed by the BOS to contain running bamboo on your property, right? If you're a resident or if you're a public agency, regardless, you are to retain Phyllostatus bamboo and other running bamboos on your property and not let it encroach on your neighbor's property. If it has encroached or is encroaching, both parties need to contain it and control it. From Park Authority's perspective, we're not interested in containing bamboo on our property. And to be clear, Park Authority has no record of planting bamboo on our property. It was either spread onto our property or it was on a property that we had acquired sometime in the past, but we do not plant running bamboo. So therefore, we have quite a challenge in front of us. And our goals are to protect and enrich the quality of life, not only for the community, but also for the local ecology. So this serves both, and it is consistent with our mission of environmental stewardship and conservation to ensure that residents have high quality parklands, but also have access to well-maintained and enriching natural spaces. So it is very consistent with our natural resource management plans and the goals of Park Authority in general. Since our initial identification efforts of running bamboo patches began in 2015, so well before the ordinance was passed, we've marked over 185 occurrences of running bamboo on parkland. So this is all occurrences on parkland. And we would aim to control all occurrences of parkland, prioritizing those which are encroaching on our neighbors' properties. It's not just a scattered occurrence, it's an expansive challenge, and running bamboo specifically, has proliferated across vast expanses of our parks. So to put this in perspective, cumulatively, we're looking at a little over 250 acres of bamboo that we found on our property. And due to the magnitude of that space and the intricacies involved in managing a plant known for its aggressive growth, this is going to be a long-term process. This is going to require a coordinated effort. It's going to involve focused approach as well as a lot of prioritization to determine which projects make it to the top of the list as we work our way through this impressive acreage of bamboo on our property. You all may be curious, since the ordinance passed, how many complaints we've got from residents. 62. I'm sorry, 62 complaints since 21 when this conversation came up recently again. So Supervisor Stewart reinitiated the conversation on running bamboo. And then 20 complaints have come in since the ordinance has passed. So residents are definitely focused on this issue, and they're definitely engaging Park Authority to do our part and ensure that bamboo doesn't continue to encroach on their properties. Next slide, please. Okay. So in light of the ordinance and in preparation of the ordinance, we recognize the significant challenge before us in managing running bamboo on our own property. We've established a prioritization protocol that takes a number of different site conditions and other factors into account when determining how we're going to be addressing these bamboo projects and how we're going to prioritize them. Things like ease of access, the size of the bamboo, both in coverage and diameter, the proximity to rare resources, and most importantly, the cooperation from the neighboring landowners. It's really important that if we're going to go after different bamboo patches, that we have support from the neighbors that have this bamboo on their property. They're also going to take some management action. There's a number of other factors that are weighing into our prioritization protocol. Those are things like the vulnerability index, as well as some logistical aspects of what it takes to manage bamboo on parkland, both from cutting it down, disposing it, and then following up with herbicide application to make sure that, again, not that we are containing bamboo, but we are removing it from our property. So, let's try and speak close to the microphone here. So you'll note that in addition to establishing this prioritization protocol, we are actively recording and tracking complaints, as stated before. And we have a database where we are tracking this information. And in addition to that, we are providing outreach education both to residents, but also to the Department of Code and Code Compliance. So DCC Code Compliance are the folks who are actually going to be doing inspections on behalf of neighbors who are complaining about bamboo running onto their property. And I was happy to say that I met with all of their inspectors at all hands meeting, provided a training for running bamboo identification, and offered our services for identification when the time comes if they run up against issues with ID. And they to date have over 100 complaints that are in some phase of compliance. I'm not going to speak too much more on what DCC is doing, but we are being active partners in that conversation. Continued next steps is going to be long-term management on parkland. So funding remains a challenge on this front, and it's going to be an expensive proposition. I was asked to provide an estimate of the total cost of removing bamboo on parkland and a timeline. This is a very conservative estimate, and it does not take into account all unreported bamboo on parkland, but we estimate 15 years and $9.25 million to take it all out. That is at the current rate and our current dollar value, and based on our current estimates from completed bamboo restoration projects on parkland. Please consider that managing bamboo in a natural space is much more expensive than managing it, say, in a turf area. So if we have to be a little bit more surgical when going into places like meadows and forests to remove bamboo along trails and natural areas versus doing it in a backyard, for example. We were able to work towards this funding. So in FY23, we received $400,000 in third quarter carryover. And in FY24, we requested recurring funding to actively manage bamboo. We would like to expand this program and do our part to manage running bamboo on parkland as our residents are being asked to do on their own property. So to discuss IMA now, fostering stewardship and expanding natural capital is one of the key priorities of the Natural Resource Branch. And as you all are aware, IMA is our flagship stewardship program. IMA received $400,000 in funding from the EIP program, which is the Environmental Improvement Program. And that funding goes towards 2 part-time employees and 2 interns to support over 70 site leaders who have contributed to date with their teams over 100,000 hours in volunteer time removing invasive plants on parklands. Also included in the IMA program, although not funded under the Environmental Improvement Program, is 1 program manager, 1 full-time ecologist, 2. The program remains as popular as ever, and we are tackling significant acreage of invasive management on parkland, and again, over 70 sites. We've treated, in support of the IMA program, over 1,000 acres of invasive plants this year through contracted support under the watchful eye of our program managers under IMA. And this year alone, we had 22,052 volunteer hours just for removing invasive plants under the IMA program. In addition to that, the IMA program receives some funding from the Urban Forestry's urban pest program to mitigate for the impacts of the spotted lanternfly. So that includes $100,000 every year split within the Natural Resources branch just to go after Tree of Heaven. We've been implementing that funding over the past 2 years, and will be implementing it in the coming year as well at a number of different sites. So this year we've requested a raise for IMA to account for a number of things, including CPI, but it also raises to employees across the board. There was a reclassification for the ecologist positions as well as a compression study. You may be all aware of that. And we submitted that request through the Environmental Improvement Program as we've done in past years. We continue to support IMA and we continue to support long-term funding for the program and are look for opportunities to include it as a more permanent part of the BOS's long-term budget. Now, to wrap this up, I do want to report out on something you all supported in the past. This is the Landscape Legacy and Sustainability Program, and it represents Park Authority's continuing investment in natural capital, and that's to say, continuing investment in our restorations and protection of rare natural resources on parkland. This program got kicked off in full this year. We now have a full-time ecologist running the program, as well as 2 full-time ecologists to support, so 3 in total. And their primary efforts have been to maintain and monitor completed restorations under the Helping Our Land Heal program so that our investments into these restorations are not in vain and we continue to maintain high quality natural resources on parkland. In addition to that, they'll begin exploring protection measures for rare resources, particularly rare natural communities and rare plants, to include herbivory exclusion, as well as some invasive plant treatment support measures when necessary. As part of the growth of this program, we've established a new office at the Lewinsville House in Lewinsville Park. So I invite you all to visit the site whenever you like. We've got, again, 3 full-time ecologists working out of this site, as well as stewardship staff who are really bringing this new office to life. And it's a great opportunity for them to work out in the parks, engage with residents. We have a nearby IMA site, as well as some pressing maintenance issues that are being attended to on site. So it's a really good opportunity for them to work within a park, and it has a lot of room for growth as well, which we're excited to get into this fiscal year. As part of that growth, we're going to continue investing in equipment and resources at the Lewinsville House, but also to help grow the program. There's going to be a number of sort of ground level building that we're going to need to continue to do coming into the next fiscal year. We're going to continue to establish protocols to transition the completed Helping Our Land Heal restoration projects into this maintenance program. So that's going to include things like inventory management. It's going to include things like turning these restorations into assets that we can book time and staff and efforts to, so we can track how these restorations change and how much we're investing in them over time to establish that change. We'll be producing invasive plant treatment plans for these sites and continuing our investment when necessary in spot treatments to defend these restorations and ensure that we have high quality natural community where we want it. And then in addition to that, we're going to be continue to establishing some of the boots on the ground measures to do this maintenance. That includes growing the prescribed fire program to establish maintenance burns. So we have restoration burns that we currently engage in on parkland to establish these restorations. And in the past, we've been doing maintenance burns here and there as funding allows. But now that we have dedicated funding to it, we're going to continue to grow the prescribed burn program to make sure that where fire is an appropriate maintenance measure for these community types, we'll be able to implement it. In addition to that, we are doing some basic but necessary herbivory control work. So that includes fence mending, installation, things like that. Not the most exciting thing, but certainly necessary to ensure that our deer fences are in good condition and can keep them out of our restorations. And then most importantly, I think, is the development of the floristic monitoring protocols. So we'll have 2 rounds of monitoring per year at these restorations. One early in the growing season, just to determine what immediate maintenance issues are needed at the site. Things like fallen trees on fences or tree tube removal or obvious invasive encroachments that we need to deal with. And then later in the season, we're going to be looking at a more objective type of study where we'll have transects or plots to look at how the natural communities are changing in the restorations over time and what our management actions are doing to guide that change. So I always like to close out with a nice photo of our teams here. And I want to emphasize, it's not just the natural resource branch that implements the natural resource management program on parkland. In addition to the branch itself, we have naturalists and stewardship professionals at a number of different nature centers and resource-based parks that help implement things like prescribed burns, provide the stewardship and education component to our program, and facilitate our activities on the ground that really, bring the program together and help us implement the natural resource management plan in an effective way. So they're also included in this picture, and there's also one behind the camera taking it. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the importance of those programs and the need for continued investment in the sites and resource-based parks. Thank you all, and I'll take any questions.
Thanks, Sean. Before we do that, you guys want to read yourselves in?
Yeah, why don't I do that? So Ken, are you on the phone?
I'm here, Larry.
Okay, good. You're on. Okay, Virginia law authorizes remote participation of any public body. We do have a quorum, so we were not able to do this before. And so the question I would ask, can you please state for the record your location and why you're participating remotely?
Ken Lanfear, the Hunter Mill representative, and I'm participating from my home in Reston for some family medical issues.
Thank you so much, Ken. Do I hear a motion that Ken's voice can be adequately heard and that his remote participation comports with our remote participation policy?
Gianna so moves.
Clyde seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
right.
Thank you.
All righty. Who's got questions?
Back down to this.
This is Ken, having just been certified. I've got a quick question.
All right, Ken,
In
go
the
ahead.
past, we have been, we've criticized parks sometimes and the board sometimes for funding these longer term programs with year-to-year money. Do you feel, it looks from what I've heard here, that you seem to be making some progress in establishing these programs as regular line items? Would you characterize it that way, or?
Certainly with the maintenance program, the landscape legacy program, that was a huge, it's a huge win to the natural resources of parklands. And it really solidifies the commitment to invest in our restorations in natural capital and in the interests of our advocates, the advocates of natural resources rather, that we're serious about that. And yes, you're correct. That is a long-term measure, which we're really excited about. Having essentially the maintenance side to our restorations. If you think of restorations as construction, you're going to need to maintain those buildings, that development long-term, and having that as a regular part of the budget is a huge win in my mind. So from my branch's perspective, certainly we've made some real headway there.
Very good.
There, go ahead.
So I heard a presentation for Supervisor Stork, and in that presentation, it was on bamboo. One of the things that was interesting is I did not realize that there was native bamboo in Fairfax County. And so I was just wondering, and I apologize for being late. I was just wondering if you had any comment or observation so that people could recognize the distinction between native bamboo and presumably preserve it as opposed to invasive bamboo.
We've mostly been focused on the difference between running bamboo and clumping bamboo for our educational trainings, but you're correct, there is native bamboo in this area. It is not as common and typically not found in the similar environments that we're finding things like the Phylostachys genus. But we have not at this point engaged DCC or the public in identification of native bamboo. That's going to be something that we'll work on as part of the development of the bamboo program, but it's difficult enough to differentiate, we're finding, between the running and the clumping, just because the key diagnostics are underground in the rhizomes. So no, but we recognize that will come up as more of these complaints come through. And I have certainly, when talking to code compliance, offered the expertise of my team to weigh in, and we've already received a couple of questions regarding bamboo and questions on, hey, is this running, is this clumping, is this native invasive, and we're always happy to weigh in there. But it's something that we will endeavor to do as the bamboo program grows.
Is the native one more similar to the clumping or the running?
It's more similar to the running. Yeah. The clumping bamboos aren't, there's only a couple genera that I'm aware of, and I'm certainly not an expert on bamboo specifically. But one thing we find is they're not as commonly found growing in this like ecoregion. They're more found in tropical regions.
I was wondering, do local nurseries sell running bamboo? Could I go and buy it if I were so inclined?
So the question about banning the sale of invasive plants, running bamboo, English ivy, and others was something that was discussed at the invasive plant task force, the state initiative, like 2 years ago now. I can't say whether or not you can buy it, that, Phylostachys specifically. I wouldn't be surprised, I'll put it that way. But that is an ongoing challenge, is turning off the tap when it comes to invasive plants. And we're managing them, at the back end here after they've already been planted in the ground or spread by a vector like a bird or things like that. So I would say it's likely.
It would be nice if the nurseries would advise people of their obligation were the bamboo to leave their property. That would be good information for a purchaser to know.
I agree. And there's been discussion too about point of sale education on all invasive plants sold at nurseries, not just bamboo, but considering that this ordinance is now in effect. Yeah, I agree.
Renee?
I have a question that I don't know if you'll know the answer to, but I learned recently that the animal control officers under the police department are being proposed to be moved to the animal shelter. And this would affect, I believe, all of the officers dealing with animals or wildlife. And I actually just had a conversation about domestic dogs and such, completely separate from EQAC, with Risa Courier, who's the executive director of the animal shelter, and talked with her about that issue. But your discussion tonight reminded me that this may also affect the wildlife biologist position that is under the police department. If that gets moved, that will affect potentially deer management. Is the park authority aware of this, or how might, because I think parks are a primary place where the deer management program, archery program is run. Has there been any discussion or coordination about that move in terms of how it might affect natural resources?
So you're correct that we're the biggest stakeholder in the deer management program, but I have not been part of any conversations with the reorg involving the police. So it probably wouldn't be appropriate for me to speak on that.
Yeah, no,
But I certainly hope that we can continue that partnership, because obviously we stand to benefit greatly from appropriate populations of white-tailed deer on part of that.
okay, thanks.
I got a question for you. What does a typical bamboo treatment plan look like, and how long does it take to eradicate a particular plot?
So I met with one of our contractors, our invasive plant management contractors last week, and I had an idea of what the process looked like, and she confirmed it based on what they're seeing out in the field. So as you might expect, private property owners are already taking action where and when they can, and are using some of the same contractors that we use for invasive plant management. So we're getting some, real world examples of what effective management looks like, what the timeline is. So based on the most recent conversation, it involves a growing season cut of the bamboo. You'll have to haul it off site or dispose of it or mulch it somehow. And then it is follow-up foliar herbicide application, typically glyphosate, 3 to 4 years following the cut. So you have to be consistent and you have to be disciplined with your reapplication. So that's really why we have to be very diligent and very structured in how we go after bamboo, because these are long-term projects. It's not like some other things like woody vines, which you can cut and paint, or do like a basil bark application on something like tree of heaven. It's going to be a long-term management because bamboo is especially tenacious and it's especially tough to manage and remove. Kim?
I think you mentioned earlier that you experienced bamboo both on public property, which is also adjacent to private property. And what is your experience in encouraging the participation of the private property owners to do the removal techniques as well?
So it's fairly limited because to date, bamboo management under my program has only occurred on Park Authority property. So we haven't gone off site and done any outreach trying to encourage neighbors to go after it. I can tell you though, from the conversations I've had with residents, it's going to largely depend on the opinions, I think, of the property owners and how engaged they are in things like natural resource initiatives and the overall, I should say, like if they're, let me rephrase this, if they're really into native plants, for example, I think they'd be more likely to go after bamboo in their own yard versus if they see the ordinance as sort of something that's just a burden, they may be less excited and look to park authorities putting the onus on Park Authority to manage it on parkland. So I can't say for sure because again, we've been focusing most entirely on park property, but I expect that may be a challenge.
I assume that there are a number of acres that are in open space, but not Park Authority property. I wouldn't hazard a guess as to what that is, but it might be an equal amount of the 20,000 acres that the Park Authority owns. Given that you already don't have enough revenue or allocation to take care of Park Authority property, what kinds of support could you give to HOAs and the like who can muster the resources and volunteers to look at their property and determine whether they've got an issue with bamboo or not?
So are you asking what can Park Authority do to help private property owners manage bamboo on their property?
I was asked, well, let me take it to the HOA level.
Okay.
And I guess the first thing in my mind is, to what extent is it an invasive problem on HOA properties? And I can envision something that would be, we've got heavy Boy Scout participation in Little Rocky Run. And with some training, those Boy Scouts could determine, or at least do a pass through and see the extent to which that might be a problem for us in Little Rocky Run.
So, currently our invasive management training, outreach, education initiatives are focused on parklands, and they're mostly with the IMA program, intended to facilitate invasive management efforts on parklands to the benefit of the natural resources at a given site. That being said, we're certainly, and we certainly do train up volunteer groups for identification and management of invasive plants. And they could certainly take that knowledge, to their HOAs to conduct their own surveys and things like that. I would say it's very unlikely that Park Authority would be doing any sort of, trainings or survey work on HOA property for independent groups focusing on the efforts on parklands. But again, we offer that training, initiatives and education that we provide for invasive plant identification and management is applicable outside of parkland as well.
Thank you.
All righty, move on. John, are you doing the forestry update or is it somebody? All right.
That would be me, Kevin Williams. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Good evening. This is Kevin Williams. I'm branch manager in Park Operations Division, and I'll be giving you an update on our forestry operation. If you could go to the next slide, please. So this is just a quick agenda. We're going to talk about our staffing and budget, our work distribution, our risk assessment and priority, some of the challenges we've been facing, and our budget history, some of the requests and needs that we have, and whatever our next steps proposed to be. Next slide, please. So a quick budget. This is staffing and contracts. So we're about a $1.2 million salary number for full-time and part-time staff, and that's with benefits included. Contract budget of around $383,000. And we spent, just for reference, last year, $1.24 million on contract. We'll get into more of that later. These funds are only addressing reactive work. So we get a phone call from the public about trees behind their property, or they're in the park and they see an issue. They call it in and we assign a certified arborist to go inspect it. And we are only able to address those that we assess as extreme or high risk. Anything below that, medium or low risk, is not addressed. And anything proactive is also not funded in this budget. Another thing that's not funded in this operation is tree planting. So if we're cutting down trees, we're not going back and planting one for one behind it. John's group over at RMD, as well as Urban Forestry, has some planting programs. Urban Forestry, as you probably know, are trying to get up and running a new tree planting program. And they're hoping to target some parkland with that, but that's still in its infancy. So next slide, please. So our work distribution, we do have staff and contractors, as I mentioned. Some of how we determine who does what. We try to give our staff the routine non-emergency work. Of course, it's still high risk, as I mentioned. We try to give the work to the staff that is a lower risk for park and private property damage, or to staff, injury to staff as well. Try to put them in the best position for safety. And just to note, we did have 4 vacancies last fiscal year. We were a little short on our staff goals just from the vacancy standpoint that we had. In the past, we had been more full staffed, but we did have a challenge last year filling positions. And then our contractor, we assign them similarly high risk trees, but the extreme and emergency trees. So some of the examples might be, we get a phone call that a storm damaged tree is leaning across to someone's backyard or towards their house, and it's something that's of extreme nature. We'll call them out to deal with it in an emergency basis, but also anything that has a higher risk for property damage or staff injury, we try to give towards the contractor. Things that require cranes and those sorts of things, we don't have the equipment for. So those are just some examples of contracted work. Next slide, please. As the ISA risk matrix, it's a visual of what that looks like when we assess a tree. We give it a likelihood of failure and impact, and what are the consequences of that impact. Those are just all the different categories of risk that are associated with the assessment, and then highlighted in the purple hashed box in the upper right corner. Again, that's the high and extreme risk categories that we're currently focused on, but you can see there's several other boxes that risk falls into that we do not address currently. Next slide, please. So in those high and extreme risk boxes, we consider that priority 1 work. We have 1, 2, and 3 work. The 2s and 3s are the ones that we're not doing. Again, that's the medium and low risk tree work. Some examples, just some pictures of what a priority 1A, we have a 1A and 1B. to try to differentiate what is of the most importance. So some examples of what a 1A might look like is a high value target. So something hanging over a major roadway or a high occupancy area such as playgrounds or trails, parking lots, etc. Next slide, please. And again, priority 1, still high and extreme risk, but just a 1B category, still has property damage potential to it. It just may be less valuable as far as maybe it's just falling across the yard, or it's just going to hit a fence, or it's a less used park amenity. It's still got a high risk to it, of course, but the impact is a little bit less than a 1A might be. Next slide, please. So some of the concerns and some of our response to those concerns recently in the last few years, we've seen a spike in oak decline across the county, and that's resulting in almost 250% increase in the removal of oak trees over the last decade. Some of you are probably familiar with the emerald ash borer situation a few years ago. That is no longer our biggest concern. That has subsided to some extent. We're still dealing with it, but it is by no means our biggest issue. So right now, oaks are our big challenge. With that comes larger diameter trees. They're very old in most cases. And of course, the quantity of trees dying has gone up. And just a side note, our contract costs continue to rise over the last few years. To address the work that we have, this high risk, extreme risk, we're reallocating money from other park projects and maintenance budgets to address the safety need. So we're prioritizing trees as a high risk safety issue. So we're reallocating funds from other areas. Maybe it's a trail project or court renovation or athletic field maintenance or what have you. It's being redirected to accommodate the safety issue. Also, we have a lack of funding to perform any preventative forestry work, as I mentioned previously. Next slide, please. So just a note from Brian Keatley, the Director of Urban Forestry, just oak decline is, again, you probably all are familiar with, is across the whole county. It's 3 main factors that we're seeing is the maturity of the trees, extended droughts, and late spring frosts has been what has been attributed to it. Next slide, please.
The droughts, I've lost so many oaks.
So this is, I would say, maybe the money slide. That overall is our contract budget specifically. This has nothing to do with staff money. This is contract money. You can see we put in 2013 as a starting point of what our budget was then, up to what our budget is now in 2024. So we've had some slight increases over the years in our budget. The actuals, our expenses, you can also see that has been climbing steadily over the years, from 200,000 and change up to projected $1.2 million this year. And the red column is the deficit of those two numbers and how we are addressing that. In the far right, sources of our deficit coverage. We've had 4 main buckets of park money that we've taken from internally to pay for the tree work. Park maintenance being the primary one. Our general fund budget has also contributed to covering, and then some athletic field money as well. We have had a few carryover in the third quarter requests funded by the county. $500,000 last year in third quarter and another $500,000 this year at carryover. You can see we still have a deficit to work out as we go on this year. Next slide, please. These are just some of the pictures and glamour shots, if you will, of what we encounter and what if we had a proactive program, what we could try to avoid. This obviously is when we show up and the tree is already down, what the damage can be. So houses and park property, vehicles, etc. But if we had a proactive program or could handle some of the medium and low risk, we could potentially get to these before they become a problem. Next slide, please. This is a visual of the table that was 2 slides ago, just the last few years of contract expenses. As you can see, it continues to go up and up and up. This year, as I mentioned on the table, we're projected to be at 1.2 to 1.4, give or take. Expenses this year just depends on how the spring typically goes, what sort of dieback we see on the oak trees, etc. But that's our current projection. Next slide, please. So what is that doing to us as an operation? Over the last decade, we've deferred $2.65 million worth of maintenance funds from other areas over to tree work. As a result, that's compounding deferred maintenance on those park facilities. So it's pavilions and trails and playgrounds, all the things I've mentioned. If we're supposed to be spending $100,000 on a playground for maintenance, that's been redirected over to trees, and that work is not getting done on that playground. So then the next year comes around, and of course, we didn't do what we were supposed to do for maintenance on that item. So it's, again, compounding that issue for us. So in addition, we're delaying job completion and our backlog is growing. We can only afford to do the high-risk trees. We're not dealing with anything else. So it's all those low and medium risk trees eventually become high risk over time. So we're not being able to get to those ahead of time, and it's catching up with us when it becomes more risky. It does increase the risk of the risk to patrons, to neighbors, of course, our tree staff. As those tree conditions deteriorate over time, we're not getting to them soon enough. The tree related damages and claims are increasing, as well as the public complaint and concern is becoming more of an issue in the public eye. Next slide, please. So what are we doing this year and beyond? As I mentioned, we got the $500,000 at carryover this year. We're asking, or will ask, for another 390 or so at third quarter this year to try to meet this year's contract budget need. And again, that's only addressing the extreme high risk trees. And then for next fiscal year, we're going to ask for that $890,000. That will bring us to the $1.2 million mark, which is about where we're at currently. And that is to quote unquote make us whole. Again, that is still only addressing the extreme and high risk trees. So what we could do beyond that for all the trees that we assess that need to come down, as well as a proactive program, is to be determined. Next slide. I believe this is just the summary of all the risk that is associated with all the trees we inspect. And again, the proactive inspections, if we could do something more cyclical in nature, do some structural prunings, get ahead of some of these deteriorating conditions, that would be our future goal. And with that, I will take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Kevin. Anybody have questions? Renee?
For the trees that are being taken out, even though you're not able to do any proactive planting, are you logging where the trees have been removed so that when or if we get funding to replant, that will know where that loss should be replaced?
We are not logging it from a GIS perspective, similar to how John is logging the bamboo that they're finding. We do track where we take it out of in our work order system. We do track, say it's a park neighbor's property. We have that information as far as it was behind 123 Park Drive. We track the species, the size of the tree, all that information. So we have enough information, I think, to work with if it comes to there needing to be a one-for-one replacement or something of the like. But we do not have a GIS track. That would be nice to have.
Thank you.
So we often think about all the natural resources that are in the parks. And one of the things I was just wondering if you could speak to is it seems like budget really constrains you to take care of the forests as you would want to, as we'd like to see. I'm wondering if more can be done volunteer wise. I could see there's things that say I might do in my backyard, like if I have a tree that's just rotted and about to fall over, I could see removing it. I could see things like that. And I'm wondering if you have any kind of volunteer network that does things beyond the invasives that we've already heard about.
Kyle, if I may address that, I know that at Great Falls Grange has a white oak grove behind it. And there is an active citizens group, Great Falls Citizens Association and others have helped to organize it, who are doing extensive mulching to expand the area, so to avoid root compression and things by users of the park and the adjacent playground. So there are some cooperative ventures and activities going on that will help us, but we're still clearly underfunded in terms of a lot of real activity.
That's good. I'm actually wondering if that's something that's worth growing, because that sounds like a good idea. Obviously, pursuing budget is good, but if you can find people that could actually help, that might be.
Good.
The only thing, as I listen to this conversation, if you have a program like that, you have to have someone manage a program like that and coordinate it and advertise it. And so it's not going to spontaneously erupt into a whole. I mean, we both live in Great Falls. And so, yeah, that community's there and they're probably little pockets, but if you wanted a big version of that, it would require a commitment of, yeah, I know, Bill, I'm thinking the same thing.
John, I assume you stepped up to the mic for a reason.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that there is a program that is focused on protecting trees before they get into such a condition where they need to be taken down when we get to it. So the Grange is a good example, but the Tree Rescuers program is a group that IMA engages with. And while they are, yes, invasive plant managers and wherein they cut invasive vines off trees, they do so with the intent of preventing them from getting to the point where forestry needs to step in because they've been encumbered by vines.
So do people know about that group? I mean, I'm not the be all and end all of people, but.
Plant Nova Natives helps to get the word out about that. It's helpful.
It's not a park authority program like the IMA program. It's not like run by park authority, but it is the trainings and like volunteer support kind of run in tandem with IMA. That's how I would describe it. And they are a partner for managing invasive vines specifically on parkland.
IMA leaders are empowered to help train people like that can help supplement the program, but not be part of the IMA program, but be a tree rescuer.
I was my comment was really about, do citizens associations and others have that is there somewhere they get that information?
So the Tree Rescuers have their own website and it's discrete from IMA. And IMA volunteer team leads and IMA staff will certainly share the information on that program. So I believe it's linked on the IMA.
So you have to know to go to the IMA website to find it.
I think maybe two comments. One, to that specific point, perhaps unless there is some prohibition as to why the park authority would not be able to or want to make that program more accessible, more aware.
Right, just put it on our website and let people know it exists.
But also, there are, for example, we could ask all these supervisors to put it in their various newsletters. We could help publicize the resource rather than just saying, oh yeah, IMA's got it covered, I guess, because there's probably a lot of people in this room who have been involved for a very long time. These kinds of issues that might be sitting here, including some board members hearing about the program for the very first time. And I think board members of the Park Authority Board, I'm going to assume that you all understand and know everything. I don't. But the second comment I would make to the question about volunteering, I think that some programs are more volunteer accessible than others. So for example, the tree removal program consumes a tremendous amount of budget. That isn't, I doubt there are very many tree removal projects that could be handed over to volunteers of the kinds of trees that we're probably focused on at this point. And so I think that it's important to recognize that the tree removal program, which is only able to focus on, I don't know what the best, the worst, the most necessary to be removed trees that are most likely to cause damage and blah, 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 blah. That is consuming budget and hunks of budget that are otherwise dedicated to other things. And I think it's just important to realize that that is probably not, that the program that we were just briefed on is probably not something where we could say, hey, homeowners association, identify the trees that are behind you on Park Authority property that you think to be removed. And can you go cut them down? Or even if we were to identify them, go cut it down and, oh, I'm sorry that it landed on your neighbor's fence, but how do you know, there's just so many issues. And I think that it's really valuable for y'all to understand how this is consumed, how this is consuming other pockets of budget that are used for other things.
So I would just say that I live in Great Falls and I live on 5 acres and 4 of my acres are in wooded. And we have spent a small fortune in the last 7 years taking down oak trees. And it's all about the rain. It's all about the droughts. There's just no way around it. My trees were fine before we started having these long periods of.
And if you're in a neighborhood that had, where they planted Bradford pears.
No, no, mine are all oaks.
No, I'm just saying that it, everywhere you go, there's.
I know. Yeah, you
This
hang
is-
up for a bit. Go ahead.
This is Ken. I have a question. We're losing oaks, obviously. Are we seeing any natural recruitment or are the deer eating all the young trees?
So we are seeing natural recruitment. It's generally site specific. So some areas are better than others, essentially. But specifically where we do have hunting going on for the volunteer deer management program, I can't say 100% for all those parks, but we are seeing, recruitment. So for places like, let me think of an example. So, Sully Woodlands, Patriot Park, these are areas where I've recently seen new oak recruitment, popping up. And that was notable. And both those sites have active deer management. So if we want to continue seeing that, broadly throughout the county, we definitely need to continue promoting that program. And again, I think the deer browse surveys would also show this. I don't have the data here with me tonight, but I'm guessing the deer browse data would show that that the browse is being reduced in parks that do have that active deer management. So that would include not just shrubs and herbaceous plants, but also some of those seedling oaks that we're trying to.
Yeah, I've got no recruitment because
Eric, we'll give you the last word on this one and we'll get on to the budget item.
Given that EQAC has a major concern with climate change and both with adaptation as well as and building resilience, it looked like the tree program is looking at the future as being a straight line or a straight line increase. And in fact, what we're in a time of probably an exponential or at least some kind of a multiple growth. To what extent is there a capacity for the next derecho, the next nor'easter, the next hurricane that comes through and knocks down a whole lot of trees? And also, as we see, the patterns that are affecting the oaks are accelerating. So a straight line budget, a straight line projection of, oh, we're going to increase a little bit, isn't really dealing with the reality that things are going to be getting worse and potentially substantially worse. So how is that being dealt with? Or is it a way to be dealt with?
Kevin, you have anything you want to chime in on that one?
I think we're just trying to deal with the fire that's in our face at the moment. Your question is certainly a valid one. How do we deal with the greater issue? We talk about not having funding for even just the standing trees that are medium and low risk. You're talking about, what happens when a storm comes in and levels, a block of trees. I don't think we're adequately funded for just what we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So that would be even more of an extreme lack of funding, whether it's an emergency fund or what have you. But if we do get stuck in that situation, we're going to be deferring a lot more park maintenance as it is currently. So
one of the things that engineers will look at is reserve financing. As we project off into the future, how much do we need to have in reserve or build up in reserve so that we can manage instead of taking out of other really important things.
Sure.
and making the case that, you know, things are, as you already are seeing,
Yeah.
are getting worse year to year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're in a position to set up a reserve fund for this. We can't fund it kind of on an as needed basis. It's an area where, you know, you y'all can help us maybe move the
That's what
needle a
this
little
will
bit
be.
on the, right, move the
That's
needle a
what's
little bit with the board of,
patients
right,
are-
move the needle a little bit with the board of supervisors, because I think to Kevin's point, what it comes down to is, you know, the need far outstrips the funding we've got, and we'll kind of use that as a segue, Jay, to talk about our budget request for this coming fiscal year.
You get the good news, right? It's always good news.
This is my first time over here, so. Good evening, everyone. Jay Cole, Executive Director of the Park Authority. I chose to do the budget item. I didn't want Kevin or all of this great stuff. They get to talk about the great stuff. Then I come in and talk about the not great stuff, so you guys can come to the chair. Okay, next slide. So we wanted to give you guys a little bit of a background on what's going on with our budget, general fund budget, and highlighting a few specific things that are apropos to this conversation. So as you all know, the county is undergoing a 7% budget cut exercise. 7% budget cut exercise. And so this on your screen is what that 7% of our general fund dollars, that ended up being $2.4 million. So this is what's on the chopping block, but what we put out for the 7% exercise. Next slide.
Before you move on to the next, I think it's just okay. Just before you move on to what you're doing next, I think it's important to just add the detail there that it's 7% of non-personnel. So general fund distribution from the county to us may look like a decent number. When you account for personnel, it gets real small real quick. So we're taking 7% or $2.5 million of a much smaller total.
We'll take 2.5 million for a much smaller total, so it accounts for far more than 7%.
Right. It's
Yeah.
something closer to, I think, like 40% or a third.
Yeah.
Wow.
So.
And you know, we can provide the video. We just did a really great presentation about our maintenance and talking about vacancies and where the money goes. So you saw Kevin talk about the forestry money, and we were, you know, almost $1 million over our forestry. We have to find that money someplace. And so unfortunately, it's not like something else where I don't pick any program and I tell John Burke, you have this much money to deal with non-native invasives. That's it. Just spend that money and then that's it. You can't go forward. Forestry, there's no way of knowing what the year is going to look like. I could sit up here and say, we're only going to spend what we have budgeted for forestry every year. And then a big tree is going to be a public safety hazard over a golf course, and we have to go take care of it. So this is one of those things where we have to take care of it, you know, right away. So how do we do that? Is we have to hold positions frozen, take that money from those positions and put it elsewhere. We take money from contract hours and put it elsewhere. So our vacancy rate is a little bit of a misnomer because a lot of that money is going towards where we have these overages. So those are the two positions that I wanted to identify when I had to do the 7% exercise. These are two positions that we received in the budget for FY24. So we just received them in their partial years, received them in July the 1st. And instead of cutting more, part of the on the chopping block is just I'll just hand them back and they can hand them back to me. Hopefully when we're in a better fiscal position. So I wanted to highlight those two. So the forestry position, want to make sure that that was identified, and then the eliminate the new bamboo mitigation position at 100,000. So this last year we got those two positions. Those are general fund budget positions, and then we have in the budget for this year to make us whole for the forestry and the bamboo. I think it's 500 and 400. That was third quarter. $890,000 for forestry. Then bamboo is $400,000. So I wanted to highlight those two things, and let me just go through it real quick. I'll take any questions. Next slide. I wanted to point out that those two asks were specific in the budget guidance for this year's budget. There were really only three items or three agencies that were highlighted in the FY24 budget for budget guidance, and Parks was one of them. And so number two is making FCPA operationally whole in future budgets, forestry and IMA bamboo mitigation. So I just wanted to point that out. Next slide. So this is what our budget comes down to. Our ask, the $658,000 for CPI, baseline operating increases. That's inflation increases. Bamboo removal on parkland, that's the $400,000 that I just referred to. That was also included in budget guidance. I'm gonna skip zero waste, trash and removal and recycling. I'll get to that in a second. And then OBI funding, maintenance, stabilization, staffing, that's the same services budget. So every time that we acquire a new property, we just finished, this number is fairly high because we're just finishing the Sully Woodlands Education Center. We need to staff it. And so this is the money that goes with staffing it to making sure that we can actually open the doors. We build another park. We build a new anything. This is the operating budget impact to the new facility. And then forestry operations, that's the $890,000 that we were talking about. So popping up to the zero waste, trash removal and recycling, $3.3 million is the total amount that it's going to take to get there. There's two things that we're chasing after. It's the zero waste by 2032. There's also the recycling ordinance where we're not in compliance at all because we have 420 parks and we're required to every time there's a trash can, you have to have recycling bin. Nowhere near enough staff to be able to do that. So the 3.3 million is how much it would take to get us into compliance for those two things. That does not mean that we're requesting $3.3 million all at once. We can do it in stages. We have basically till 2032 to get there. Also, some of that can be achieved by utilizing a combination of one-time money. So we have to get the recycling bins and the recycling truck. Then there are some operating dollars associated with that with staffing. So that's a weird item. Next slide. I don't think I broke it down. So those are the two that you saw in the budget guidance. Next slide. Oh, I did break it down. Okay, so this is the zero waste, trash and recycling. So right now, in our current model, we wanted to talk about this here also because this definitely has to do with the environment and protecting the environment. Trash ends up in our streams, which you can see with the bike, and in our forests. And so currently with our current model, our staff spend 2 to 3 days per week just picking up trash. So all the maintenance staff that you see, around, it's 2 days just picking up trash. We do not have dedicated maintenance staff to pick up trash. So providing additional trash and recycling services in our parks on weekends, which is really important, which is when the majority of our picnic shelters and everything are rented. And so not having somebody to go pick up the trash after that, trash can gets knocked over, Sunday comes around, wind blows all over the place. By Monday, it's like, what the heck did you guys do in the park? We went home and then we came back on Monday. And this is what we have to clean up. So having actual maintenance staff on staff when our parks are utilized the most is key to this endeavor. Also ensuring that trash and recycling separation is occurring in our parks is very important. If you've ever been to, hopefully been in our parks. So currently in a lot of our parks, you drive in and there's a huge dumpster. There you go. So because we have trucks and our maintenance staff go and they pick up the trash out of the trash bin, put it in the back of their truck and they dump it into the dumpster that's in the front. And then we pay for a service to come and take the dumpster away. Well, with the zero waste, we're trying to make sure that our residents and everybody are streaming correctly. It's a moot point when you can just take your couch and put it outside of the dumpster that's in your local park. That's right there, which happens all the time. Or you can put your big pieces of trash and we're not going to leave it there. We're going to put it in the dumpster and we're going to take it away. So at 420 parks, 200 and some have trash cans in them. That becomes a really serious streaming issue. So part of this endeavor is to get trash and recycling trucks that go to the place, take out trash, take that trash and recycling to our maintenance yards. Where there was an enormous dumpster behind a closed gated door that we're paying for them to remove trash from our maintenance yards and not the dumpster that's in front of the park. Seems like it's an aesthetic issue and it really, isn't when you see what those dumpsters look like, specifically after trash day in neighborhoods when the trash people don't pick up the thing, they end up next. So this is how it breaks down for that zero waste, trash and recycling. Again, like I said, it's some of this one time, the trucks, the compactors and the recycling receptacles. So it's about 1.9 million one time. And then the ongoing items are the actual crews to do the work. And that comes up to $1.4 million. I will add that this has a additional benefit. of freeing, we have dedicated people doing trash, but it also frees up those maintenance staff, those 2 days a week to be doing other things around parks that we need. Next slide. I believe that's it. So I just wanted to put a little bit of I think we talked about it last year, a little about where we're going. We talk about it all the time, and we know that there are needs afoot. Extending the forestry program, was one of them. It'd be great to have volunteers looking at trees to see, and if any trees are declining. The reality is we couldn't do anything with that information right now because we don't have the staff to do any kind of proactive things. Kevin would say, call me when needs to come down. It's pretty much all we have money for right now. We need to expand our NNI work in general. We don't know what that looks like right now, but we do know that's one of the requests. And I mean, we have a lot of proposals out there and things that we want to do to expend non-invasive work. Expanding the same thing with our conservation work. Getting IMA out of the EIP, the general fund baseline, is really important. I'm gonna in tough budget cycles, that's a tough sell, because I would be getting 1.5, let's say, what's IMA's budget?
$1,000.
I would be taking $400,000 and taking it from one pot to the other one with no additional anything. So, but it still would count towards what I got for the budget. So we got to get our approvals for our budgets up there to where 400,000 is a drop in the bucket. Just let's flip it over. But right now, $400,000 might be the whole ball game, so to speak. And then again, as we were talking about being more proactive in forestry and really being able to go out there and identify high hazard trees before they start to show significant decline, and hopefully try to save them so we're not taking them down all the time. And I think that's it.
All right, before we get into questions on this one, I just do want to let everybody know this meeting, we're scheduled to start another committee meeting at 6. I don't want to limit discussion too much, but let's just be mindful of that. So who's got questions?
Oh, look, you probably scare them.
Nope.
All right, so
I've not enough.
not a question. Maybe because you don't have time to answer it. But clearly the zero waste plan is a huge impact, right? If I read your presentation, you have 2 of 5 days of your maintenance personnel are currently working on trash.
Right.
So 40% of your maintenance budget is going to trash right now. That's a lot. So the county,
Not including the fees to have it done.
yes, so the county in a more general sense is trying to do zero waste for the entire private sector as well. And Public Works is trying to develop means of doing that. And they're going to be doing a lot of, I think, very different and innovative things that are kind of beyond just the idea of picking up trash, putting it in a bin and moving it. So rather than try to talk about all this tonight, I would simply encourage you to coordinate with them very, very tightly, particularly as they think about contracting out collection. And I used the word franchising before. They got me in a lot of trouble. It's not franchising. But I think that the different contractors out there that may be adjusting to collection and the different things we're going to have to do to get to 90% diversion go way beyond the $3.5 million we're talking about here.
I agree, and I'll give you a quick, we are in very close coordination with Chris, and they're some of our biggest supporters. The thing about this is kind of like forestry is I know there is going to be a budget savings. It's hard to speculate, and we're not going to know it until we start to pick up, because we're going to lower when you can't put your couch there, we're not paying to have that, so we're going to limit the amount of collections down from however many parks we have down to 6 at our maintenance service. There is going to be a efficiency there. It's just slowly getting to that point where we're really seeing the efficiency, but we're in close contact with DPW on this.
So on the budget side of this, I'll also point out that it's actually cheaper per ton to recycle than it is to pick up and carry to Covanta. Now, who knows how much you end up recycling? We're going to find that over the years, but you don't have time.
Just really quick, I think it's also worth Jay noting that you know the detail of this, but we do have vacancies we're trying to fill.
Yes.
And continue, especially in some of these areas you're talking about, struggling just to fill them. We may want to just mention that.
for maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the end of COVID has caused us to have, everybody's having staffing issues of trying to fill positions. In general, the private sector is, pay significantly more, and it's gonna sort of all start to balance out. So we also have positions that we're trying to fill. So all of the vacancies, the number of staff that we have doing trash isn't what we would have if we were fully staffed. So when I say fully staffed, be careful. That's why we talked about the maintenance and holding positions vacant. So if you think of tranches, I've got a tranche of positions I'd have to hold vacant to move to forestry. I have a tranche of positions that are vacant because of just normal vacancy rates and COVID, and Kim is trying to fill those, those positions. And so those two, if we were to be fully staffed in the tranche that we're actively hiring, it wouldn't be as high a percentage, but it's still significant. It's still 2 to 3 days. I think it's more on the 2 side when we're fully staffed and more on the 3 side when we're not for trash.
But budget is having an impact also being. fulfilled.
Yes, budget is yes. Sorry, I didn't answer your question.
Larry, you got the last word.
Okay, I want to thank you for having this meeting, and I also just want to note that I think we'd like to follow up with you because it is very disturbing to me to see the needs, and as Eric pointed out, it seems like the needs are being projected. Some of them are being projected maybe at a linear pace, when then be maybe much better than linear. In addition to that, it seems like there's backlogs of work that you're not able to undertake. And where I'm a little bit at a loss is I'm not sure always where and how to best provide comments that may be of assistance to you. Historically, we have focused our comments on natural resources because it seems like there's not a lot of people who speak up about the need for your natural resources budget. But and I think we'd like to continue to do that, but I think we're gonna need your help in order to provide well-informed recommendations so that we can have a sustainable, well-maintained park system.
We'll absolutely do that. We'll be in touch with more information.
Yeah, I mean, we want to be supportive. I think this is important to us. It's I think we share a common goal.
Absolutely.
A nickel for parks. That's all it was. It would get us a long way. It would get us a long way there.
That's 7 times what we did now.
I wish you
At
could
least.
charge for something.
At least.
Hmm?
We
I
got a
wish you
nickel.
could charge for some of the things that you do. It makes me crazy. In Great Falls, there's that podium, and I bet there's 200,000 cars that park there over the period of a year. If you could charge $5 for parking, which
We'll let you propose.
We'll let you bring that one up.
Yeah. I was gonna say, if you don't charge it enough.
Right.
Yeah.
But I, yes.
Election's over.
Thank you all very
Nickel for
much.
parks.
That's right, you don't have to do anything.
Nickel for parks.
Yeah.
Appreciate all your support.
Yeah, you propose that right now.
That's great.
Get away with it.
Feelings. I think that'll be a topic that Brian's spending a lot of time on.
Oh, man.
A lot of people are spending a lot of time.
This one? This week is a Thursday.
Renee?
People spend $5 on. Thank you.
Give me a second.
Going to Starbucks. You don't even think about it. They spend $5. They got you. It's good to see you. I'm good. You too? Yeah.
Yeah, we have to go over.
You know, I just got a.
Other building. Five. Gotta go.
All of us.
Time for breakfast.
I'm sorry. It's good to see you. You should see.
We're both very happy. Is this like joining the quasi-retirement conversation? Yes. Being able to say whatever the heck you want.
Oh, I've always said that whatever I want to school, but I still.
It does.
And they tried to change so that you lose if you won by 5 or 6 times his margin of victory last time.
Good. It's like, wow. And then so the headlines were, this morning, like, guarantee is the lone Republican winner or something.
Yeah, we left, there were Republican supervisors, there's a number of them, you can only get loud. And the loud under the developer's attorney, the incumbent Democrat is down by like 1,200-ish votes. So who knows? I mean,
Never a dull moment, I can tell you that.
The whole place was. I don't understand why the hell would you upset.
This conference Saturday. This conference Saturday. Please.
Yep.
And then-
Fighting for JMU, gotta love that.
There you go. There was one other one, but I'm glad the season is over. What can I say? You're good now. Okay, here's the other one. Remember this guy?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And let's see, and you not I spent my weekend. Oh, yeah. Yep.
Basically say, why don't we get?
What I like about living in.
I helped on his presidential campaign 1 million years ago.
Yes.
Never do. Yeah.
He remembers.
All right,
We got enough people here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. I'm just looking around the room to see whether there's a 7th in the room. So good, we're good. I'm gonna go ahead and call the Park Services Committee to order. Note that we wanted to start at 6:27, and to that, we're going to skip some of the introduction stuff and go straight to the presentation. Thank you.
Everyone, my name is Karen Lucier. I'm the programs branch manager for Park Services. Tonight, I'm going to be presenting on 4 different areas in our branch: the summer camps, the Rec Pack program, the Sully Camp Pilot, and the summer entertainment series. Sorry.
Okay. Sometimes. Okay. Sounds good.
All right, so our branch oversees youth services, land programming, fitness and wellness, and events and volunteers. I brought 2 of my staff with me here tonight, and I'd like to introduce them as well. Emily, she is our youth services section manager, and Shara White is our special events and volunteers manager. That is a new position that we have here in Park Services, a very needed position that we just started. We have an extremely strong team. I'm very, very proud of them. Everyone here, we've all only been here for, this is our first summer that we've done these programs, and I think excellent job of it as we go through with presentation. Okay, so this summer we had over 41,000 registration at camps. So this includes our camp programs, which I'll talk about next, as well as our Rec Pack programs. So altogether, that's combined of 1,500 weeks of camp that we offer this summer. Okay, so this summer, the number of camps that we offer was over 1,276. That's over 100 more camps than we offered in 2022. For camp registrations, we were able to get almost 3,000 more than in 2022 as well. and we brought our revenue up by about 600,000 from last summer. A new thing we brought back from pre-COVID was our extended care program. We got 2,300 kids in that program this summer. So the last time we offered that was in 2018. Our summer camp programs, these are 78% vendor-based, meaning we use contracted partners to offer these programs. 22% of them are in-house camps, so we offer our own staff at the rec centers that offer these programs. It's a variety of things. We had 55 sites this summer. It was at the rec centers, at the schools, at the parks, the golf courses, offsite, different areas. Pretty much anywhere we can find to put camps, we do it. We wish we could find even more, actually. So our enrollment this summer is the highest it's ever been. This is a enrollment from the past 10 years, I guess. So you can see, like I said, we're almost at 29,000 from 2023, and that's just been growing. The categories that are really popular in summer camps for us, sports is the most popular camps that we offer, followed shortly by STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math programs that we offer. And then we have a huge variety, as you can see, anywhere from cooking to dance and music, gymnastics, just anything you can think of that you would want to be involved in, we offer for our camp programs.
What falls in the traditional category? What does that mean? Traditional. It says traditional 8%. What?
So,
I know what a sports camp is. I just don't know what a traditional.
I think that's our in-house camps that we offer that it would be more just like a not specific to a category.
So just come to a variety of activities during the course of the day.
Yeah. All right, so we survey all of our camp participants, and we ask them, what do they like the most about camps? The number one answer that we get here is fun. And honestly, that's our biggest goal here at camp. So we're very happy about that. The second one is the staff, and really the staff is the most important thing that we do, because without good staff, we wouldn't run good programs. I'm a strong believer that if we have good staff, we can run good programs no matter what. So that's very important to us. The activities that we offer, the themes, the variety, just different things like that are also very important in our survey. For RecPac, this is kind of more along our traditional camp line, like we talked about before. This is offered though at the public schools. RecPac stands for Pretty Awesome Children. It's 6 weeks during the summer. It's designed to offer just different leisure activities and skills for the kids. What you would think of, like we said before, as a traditional day camp where they go around from activity to activity with a variety. That's what this program is structured like. And it allows for children to attend on a sliding scale scholarship. So there's a lot of numbers on this page, but as you can see, we upped the number of sites that we offer RecPac at by 10 from last year. And we doubled our number of registrations that we had. So we're at over 12,000 registrations for RecPac this summer, which was really great. We were able to serve 3,500 individual children with that. We also kind of brought back our CIT program in a little bit more full force. We have participants in that. For our scholarships, we were able to serve 1,300 campers in that, and it made up about 52% of our total registration. And we have more lunch sites that we were offered, and I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes.
Before you did some quick math, a lot of it I'm sure is just because you did 10 more sites, but even on a per site basis, the registrations went up quite a bit. Any explanation for why?
I think people are more comfortable to put their children kind of
Just coming back from
camp.
COVID.
They really want to, they want them to get out of the house. They want them to experience that a lot more. We've done a lot more outreach to schools, big outreach program, a lot more of connecting with the schools to get these programs, these kids into the programs.
How does it compare to like 2019?
2019.
I can help.
Yeah.
Thanks. Just a touch more.
Yeah,
on
gotta come up. Don't be scared.
Right, I'll let you make your services section manager. For the number of campers, we've actually have restricted the number of campers that we allow at each location, especially our larger locations. So we would limit the maximum number that could register. So that accounts for some of it. This year, we didn't have any maximums on registrations. So that definitely accounts for some of it. We're definitely ahead of the numbers we had in 2019. Some of that is due to some of those maximums we had in place. We released the maximums because we were pretty confident in the hiring number of people we'd be able to get for staff. Last year, we weren't anywhere near as confident, so we had those limits put in place.
Do we think there's still room for growth?
It depends on the number of schools that we get access to, and so we're in that process now of how many schools we'll have access to for next year. And then, of course, the hiring. So we have to have the staff to be able to meet, the safety ratio.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
So rec pack participants are more likely to belong to a lower income household. 1 in 3 come from a household that's under $50,000 a year for their income, and 2 out of 3 of them, the families are non-white, and Hispanic and Asian populations are the largest group. These charts here have some comparisons of what the program of rec pack is versus what the general county is for the first one for income levels. As you can see, we're under 25K. We're at about 10% of our population in rec pack, whereas the general population is at about 7%. And then the 25 to 50 range, we're at 19%, and the general Fairfax County population is 10% at that. So we really do a good job at getting these children into the program that are in those brackets. And then for race and ethnicity, 70% of them are non-white. We do have Asian as our second population, with a close second of Hispanic population behind that. And that's a comparison to the Fairfax County Public Schools there.
I just wanted to point out that distinction. So we did the household income versus Fairfax County. So you see a lot of the income that everybody's used to seeing the Fairfax County numbers, but we compared the race and ethnicity with the data from FCPS, because the race and ethnicity from the FC public schools is different than the general population. So we want to compare apples to apples there. So if you look at something and you're like, oh, that doesn't look like the county population, it's actually much more diverse in the schools right now.
Well, but that at the same time eliminates any inclusion of the private schools. Right?
It eliminates
only FCPS. So whatever the demographic of the private school population might be is.
It's a good point. We could probably find out. That shouldn't be a hard.
I would think you could do a youth sample thing more overall rather than just FCPS to better.
It's not as easy as, but we can contact, there's not a ton of private school. We could probably individually try to get at least good data. We just didn't want, it's so different, not so different, but it's fairly significantly different, the child youth population demographics and the county population demographics. We just wanted to make sure we're using, sorry.
Okay, so this is a map here of the county, the vulnerability index map here. We have it mapped out where our locations were this summer for the rec pack sites. The ones that we highlighted in yellow are lunch sites. So as I mentioned before, a lot of these are Title I schools. So they offer a free meals program where the kids are able to get breakfast and lunch for free in those schools. The schools already offer them. So it's a great partnership with them and a great opportunity for the ones in that. And then the ones that are highlighted in blue, there's a little bit of overlap there, but those are the ones that are our inclusion sites. So we offer specific support for our access and inclusion programs at those specific sites for the campers. This is another survey that we did. What does rec pack provide for the kids of Fairfax County? Again, number one answer is fun. These kids, they make new friends, they build their self-esteem. They're introduced to new activities. It's all extremely important to their growth as children. We've had a lot of equity initiatives over the past year. One that we did with our Rec Pack program was we were able to get registration and scholarship applications online for the Rec Pack program. This is the first year we were able to do that. We felt this gave them even more access to be able to get those scholarships in an easier way. In the past, it was all a paper application. It was a little more cumbersome. So that was a great initiative. And we did find we did have a large amount of our scholarship applications come through our online system. We also have our PACT program that's in our camps program. We offered $3,500 in scholarships. This goes for families that are experiencing homelessness to be able to come to our camps program with a scholarship option. Another one I already talked about is our meal program at those Rec Pack sites. So that's another great opportunity that was provided for those families this summer. And then I already talked about that as well. I'm sorry, the inclusion sites. A really cool opportunity that we had this summer was we had some specialized programs in our Rec Pack program. So, you know, Jay asked us, why can't we have these kids do these specialized programs that they're doing in the other camps? And we thought, well, why don't we use the same vendors that we're using, have them come into our programs that are Rec Packs as an initiative, and they were able to learn things like how to play chess or different specialized sports, science programs. We had a theater program in there. So that was really exciting for them to be able to just learn new different skills that wouldn't be in something that would be more of a traditional camp setting. And then another one, we had two of our sites had iceless skating. So that picture up there on the right is our iceless skating rink. So that was set up in two of the cafeterias at the schools, and the kids were able to iceless skate this summer. And that was donated to us by the vendor, which is USA Skate. Sorry, I've written down, but USA Synthetic Rinks, and they donated that for this program this summer. So that was really cool for those kids also.
Is that the same thing that was at Earth Day?
Yes, it's at Earth Day as well. And it's the same vendors too that they're excellent to work with. All right, and then our next one is our Sully Camps program. So I'm going to lead that into the next section here. So the Sully Camps were a partnership with the Neighborhood and Community Services and the Park Board. And they approved premium funding to build a second court in their NCS community center. An MOU was created so that the Park Authority can offer camps and classes and rentals to the community in this community center through the Park Authority. And they opened on September 17th, 2022. And we've been running different classes and programs since then. What I'm about to talk about is we also decided to offer a pilot program with camp programs there this summer. So this was another partnership that we've worked with NCS on trying to identify children from low-income families to be able to come to these camps in the Sully Community Center that maybe would not have been able to afford to come to these camps.
I hate to do this to you, but the degree to which we can try and wrap this in 4 minutes.
I will do my best.
Life will be good.
So these were the camps we offered: basketball, hoops, gymnastics, circus, ninja camps, a lot of cool ones, 9 weeks. We had 504 registrations in those camps. 27% of them were on the sliding scale. And 92% of those kids that were in the pilot sliding scale were non-white, and we were able to provide free lunch to them, and we were able to provide transportation to and from the center, which was a really huge thing to be able to get them there because they may not have been able to get there otherwise. This map shows the two neighborhoods that we were busing the kids in from. That was, again, a partnership with NCS. They had the bus capacity to do that to the Sully Community Center. Biggest reason why people said that they enrolled their kids to this camp was because it was close to their home. And that was really important to us, that we were able to get those kids that were close to that community center to be able to participate. And if they hadn't been able to participate in the camps this summer, we asked them what they would do, and they would have just stayed home and not been able to be in any program. So it was hugely successful in our first year, and it was a great initiative. Which one? Again, this is just, you know, why were they attending? It's fun. They tried a new activity and they felt good about themselves, and they were very happy to be there. And my last one is, thank you, family, the summer entertainment series. So this is our free to the public summer concerts, children's series, movies that we offer throughout the entire county. This summer we had 189 concerts. This was split between the 9 supervisory districts. There was 18 weekly venues, so between those 9 districts. And we offered over 40 different types of music or cultural dance, entertainment that we were able to do within those 189 concerts. We estimate just a little under 40,000 in attendance. And we had 4 Starlight Cinema drive-in movies that were done as well. And this was funded through the foundation by the sponsors and was just over $200. 2 out of 3 guests do attend more than one series here. They find it extremely important to their quality of life. To be able to do this, they understand the parks more. They just have a greater appreciation of performance and a culture through these. So the survey results do come back very high for these concerts. There are a couple of our bands that were very popular this summer. You can see we range all the way up. Some of these concerts being almost 1,000 people. And they go from anywhere, but no matter what, people just love to come to these. And then looking into the future for summer entertainment series, we do have an aging showmobile, so we are looking at options for that going forward, doing some research on it. We're looking at potential new locations. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is we did do a new location this summer. It was at the Mosaic District. That was by Providence. And that was hugely successful. It was a partnership we did with them there. So, branching out a little bit like that. We're looking at, we need to renew our sound contract for our summer entertainment series. We'll also have a few new board of supervisors. So sometimes that can kind of change the dynamics of how these are operated. And then the final piece of it is looking more at our demographic info. We have something called Placer AI in our parks, which we, can be able to get more demographic information on who's coming to these concerts, where are they coming from. And that helps us in the future when we're planning to be able to, do a better job at, placing the right bands or the right entertainment in the places that will get the most people and the most need in the community.
So 4 questions, and I hate to do this to you, but add a couple things. First of all,
I was just trying to give Kyle back time.
We'll be okay. It was my fault for starting the EQAC meeting on time.
Just killing it. So a couple of things that I wanted to point out, and I feel like that I only have a little bit more time of claiming to be new, but I can't stress enough as somebody who, came in. A lot of times when you're in something, you don't realize how really awesome it is. Our concert series is something to absolutely be screaming at the rooftops about. I mean, the fact that it's one of our most diverse, really thoughtful approaches. Each one looks completely different in each neighborhood. It really is, one of the best things that we do. So I always want to say that. The second thing, when it comes to RecPac, I just want to wet everybody's whistle a little bit. We're going to talk about it much more in depth in January. But we're having conversations right now and coordinating with NCS about, we have 2 camps, RecPac and Camp Fairfax, that provide services for the exact same group of people. And so we're talking about consolidating those camps to make it them not compete with each other. There are certain things that NCS can do that we can't. For instance, because the majority of our staff in RecPac are seasonals, our hours are 9 to 3, 9 to 4. 9 to 4, which anybody who runs a job from 9 to 5 can't get their kid there at 9 and then picked up at 4. NCS, because of their model and all of their staff most of their staff are merit, they operate from 7 to 6.
Wow.
So RecPac is also able to, Camp Fairfax is also able to provide lunches for all of the kids, and we provide lunches at places where the schools provide them too. So I just wanted to lay out that we're in conversations. What the goal is not, could you go back 2 slides real quick? The goal is not to divest ourselves of, no, sorry, keep going until you get to the one that had the Sully, the amount of the third party camps one.
That one.
This one, okay, more than 3 slides. So the it's fine. Counting is not my best trait. So the goal here is not to divest ourselves. The goal here is how do we each fall into what we do the best? And so how do we take that specialized programs at RecPac and expand that to all of the kids that are in these combined camps? How do we bring our third-party camps into all of them? How do we, instead of having field trips that they're taking kids to, Mystics games, they should be taking kids to the water mine and we should be providing services. So we're trying to sort of enhance both programs by combining them into one program, but also having us do these types of things, iceless skating, and the RecPac specialized program. So I just wanted to talk about it. We're going to get more in depth in January, but I didn't want them to have a conversation about RecPac. And the next time you hear about RecPac, we're talking about consolidating. So.
Thank you, ma'am. Bill, you had a question?
Yeah, so in a lot of different camp situations that I'm familiar with, do we follow the kids after camp is over? Do we have any contact with those kids during the course of the year after they've had this wonderful experience, or do we just drop it?
So, well, I wouldn't characterize it as just dropping them. However, I think that that's one of the, and I'll let you guys answer it. I think that that's also one of the benefits, especially for the RecPac and the Camp Fairfax, is that the model for NCS is they follow the kids from their like SAC all the way through possibly workforce development. So that's something for that program that would add in where they are monitoring the kids all the way through their job, which is why another reason why the combination of the two is not something that we have the ability to do, but NCS actually has the ability to be in these kids' lives up really through 18 or not.
And they're uniquely structured in the county because of everybody that does it with all the social services pieces, and everything else that they have built in.
Okay.
Correct.
And with the demographics looking like they're looking and what we've been able to track as far as park attendance in our parks, is there some way we're getting these kids and their families into our parks that have not experienced our parks?
I think that that's the goal of those the shifting of the resources is instead of having kids in Camp Fairfax that are going to Mystics games or someplace else, it's like, okay, how are we rotating every single kid in this camp into Watermine? Some of these families have never heard of Watermine, and to how do we get every single one of these kids into Frying Pan Farm Park and have a one-day camp experience? So that's what we're shifting. So while RecPac, the combination would happen, what we're trying to work on is that what does this program look like where every kid goes to Huntley Meadow and has an experience with our naturalists, and everybody goes to Frying Pan. And so that's kind of the goal.
In previous incarnations, I helped NCS start a program for underprivileged kids at Patriot, a soccer program. There were lots of folks, former DC United players, current DC United players, folks that would come out and spend time with the kids. That's on park property. That's also something to consider is bringing people that can help them have experiences there on property that they might not otherwise be exposed to, whether it be lacrosse or field hockey or professional football, soccer, baseball players.
I think we're uniquely positioned to be able to do that in terms, and I can't expand. I know Cindy likes to talk. It was phenomenal. If you walked in and watched the kids in the chess camp, the third party camp, it was just something that, like, just something that they weren't expecting to show up at a care camp and learn how to play chess, or show up at a care camp and learn how to, iceless skating or whatever it is. I see it again. I feel the pressure. He is there. There's ruminating at his.
Any other questions? And anybody else wants to be stared at by Kyle?
It is intense.
Question. I'm not looking at Kyle.
I'll come to you next. I'll get back to you. Go ahead, please.
Sorry. So did I understand you to say something about AI? Is AI helping to recognize the participants in these camps, or what? Tell me about us and AI.
Results that we get a lot of demographics from, or we're starting to track that in our registrations. But when I was talking about it, it was in terms of the concert series stuff. So that was, they're placing more stuff.
I think she's talking about power. I think she's talking about Placer AI.
Okay, because we have to be careful with AI. As you know.
Oh, yeah.
They don't recognize.
Is the question, which I don't think is what you were referring to.
Oh, it's not?
The
Place,
program is called Placer AI, so.
And what does the AI part mean?
I'm not.
Okay.
you know,
Is that facial recognition and all of that?
It's an artificial intelligence.
Okay, so that's,
Just
yeah.
a name, it doesn't refer to artificial intelligence.
Thank you.
Sorry for getting into that, yeah.
All right, I withdraw my question.
Went over to somebody else that likes to be stared at. Mr.
I'm
Zuck.
gonna move back. Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Are there limiting factors, or let me rephrase that, what are the limiting factors for low-income children to be able to participate in these programs?
Well, we're trying to do as many programs now as possible to not prevent, to prevent that. We have, the Rec Pack program it is a scholarship-based program, so they are able to do that, and we're trying to put the specialized programs in there. Sometimes it's just trying to get the message out to them. It's always something that can be a challenge. So we work very closely with the schools on that to be able to get them into the programs, going forward with that.
So the Sully, so before the Sully pilot was the pilot to do some sort of a sliding fee scale to get kids who can't afford all of our camps into camps. That's one of the reasons why we did Sully pilot the way that we did. All other camps, they're not a sliding fee scale. And that's another thing that we're going to be talking about with the equity study in January. There's no ability to reduce fees in our regular, except for Rec Pack and Sully camp pilot. And so those two things, Rec Pack, Sully pilot, the equity study, and this specialized programs are all, ways that we're trying to move things around to see how it fits.
I would imagine, just based on previous experiences I've had doing stuff in Fairfax County, that other limiters, and please correct me if I get this wrong, other limiters for kids being able to participate might also include transportation and location of the camp, the inability to get from point A to point B to where the camp is provided. The hours of the camps that we offer, which may not be conducive to the working hours of the parent, who it's not just, I appreciate the idea of, we have the 7 to 6 possibility in the future, and right now we're 9 to 4. There are also parents that work 2 to 8 or whatever. So yeah, there are a variety of family-based issues where folks that might be on the higher income level are in communities where a nanny and au pair can take them, they might have transportation options, things like that, that might also impact and go to your question, Jim, of how we get from here to there.
With respect to Rec Pack, what was the total funding for that last year, and where did it come?
It was about
Sorry, I can use it. 1.2 million.
1.2 million, I'm just providing.
And of that, was most, if not all, that used in scholarship? Or what percentage was used? At 15?
50, a little over 50, actually.
And one last question. Was that a limiting factor in terms of the people that you could accommodate?
I'm sorry,
In other words, you had X amount of dollars to do a sliding scale, right? Correct that. And was that limited based upon?
I think Cindy's
Come
about
up?
to jump in.
Yeah, come on, Cindy. Just come. I'm looking. She's like, look, come on.
So the funding source is from general fund. That's where we're able to provide the $1.2 million is budgeted for in Rec Pack. And that pays for whatever the programs and services we provide. So it comes from the general. That's how we're able to provide it, the cost that we provide.
But this isn't revenue fund generated. So there's nobody who comes for Cindy if it's over or under, right? It's revenue that goes to the county. So if it's more, there's not a cap to where nope, this kid gets it and this kid doesn't get it because it's general fund dollars. So it's a completely different, it's small, it is tiny pennies in the big scheme of things.
At least in the past, and I assume it still happens, the Board of Supervisors has always said, hey, if you get a bunch more kids to show up,
right,
they cover it. So I don't think, I don't
Not really.
Not really?
No, we got a budgeted amount for what.
Right, but in the past, they've covered the difference. Is that still not the case?
I wouldn't say that they cover the difference. I mean, they budgeted us what we budgeted. So where you saw 27 sites from years past, then we had 37 sites. Part of that's also budget. So but it's general fund. So when we have the subsidy comes from the general fund.
Right.
Let me ask it this way. Are we turning people away because we run out of the scholarship money?
No.
Okay.
I think one thing to note in the other program that NCS runs, and there's also almost co-located sites. So the efficiencies we'll gain through putting those two programs together will be that, and also being able to, serve more kids that are on their wait list. Because right now we're working very independently, and this will help to take place in the wait list.
I hope we also coordinate with the schools because one easy way to help with transportation, it doesn't always solve it, but going into a school inside a community that kids are used to going to can help with the ability to attend and the comfort of attending.
That's one of the things they're working on now. But this grouping together allows us to not be competing for sites. So we could actually be selective in sites into those communities and be flexible. Maybe this one didn't work and a whole bunch of kids were coming from this community. So maybe next year we're going to move it here without Cindy having to call or somebody having to call the other person and say, could you release this site to me? It's just it's a cleaner, yeah.
You're staring at me. I'm ready to say thank you, Cindy, and thank you again for everything you did. And we are officially ending at 6:25 as we said.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ken?
We're officially starting at 6:40.
Wait, I thought there was a plan.
We're gonna fly.
25.
There is.
You said 6:40. I think you may be looking at.
6:25, yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna call the committee to order. Is Brendan?
Brendan's online.
Oh, Brendan's online. Brendan, it's yours.
Thank you, sir. Members of the board, Brendan Hannafin, Planning and Development Director. And I will take any questions you might have on the quarterly report.
We're not going through the presentation this evening, so if anybody has any questions.
Good. If there's any questions.
All right. All right.
If there's any questions, you
You
can.
got my question.
Any questions?
Unfair.
Looks
great.
There are any questions, I believe.
Thank you,
can
Brendan.
contact Thank you, Brendan, Brendan. right?
Yes.
Okay, number 2, All Abilities Center project approach.
So that would be mine. Are there any questions on the request for the extension? 6-month extension. Okay,
Questions?
If you have any, we'll send them to you.
okay.
Okay.
And that's an action item.
I know,
Yes.
I was gonna ask consensus to move.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
I do that. Okay?
Yeah.
That's all. If there's no other questions, are hereby adjourned.
Okay.
See? See how that works?
Being that it's 6:40, I'm gonna call the Park Operations Committee to order and turn it over to Quinn and Kim.
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna go first. So before Kit, right? Is it right? Okay. All right, before Kim goes in, I just wanted to preempt to say, last time we had a long conversation about Massenburg grants. I want to say that we have heard you, absolutely. We had a group of Massenburg grants that are in the hopper right now with people already having in good faith raised money. So what we are going to be, so the one that you're going to see is one that was already in the hopper. I don't want anybody to think that Kim is bringing something to you, not having heard you the first time. After she brings the one, I'm going to come back and make a proposal for how we continue this conversation moving forward.
And there's a couple more too.
I think there's 5 total, 4. There's 4 total in the hopper. So we're going to ask that with the next thing. So let's let her go through the one. I also wanted to, part of the conversation that we're going to have is that, I just want to remind everyone, we did do an equity analysis of the Massenburg grant a while ago. It was location and type. but there is room for conversations about the use. And I think that we want to, I'll just do the whole thing right now. We want to continue this conversation possibly in December. We have time to have a conversation about it. So what I'm going to be proposing, if you guys want to do this, is to pause the Maston Brook after the 4 that we have in the hopper, which have in good faith raised money for their project, approve or let, so we have 1 today, we'll have 3 then in December, correct? 3 in December. Right now, though, we don't want somebody else to be raising money for a Maston Brook grant while we're having this conversation. So propose a pause and take it month by month. Let's pause it right now because the next one's not till December. And then we'll continue the conversation. Maybe we'll come up with a solution in December, and then we could unpause it and let people sort of go through, and maybe we want to prolong it to January. But I want to make sure that we're pausing or we're having this conversation and not a situation where we're having to tell people to go give a whole bunch of money back that they've raised in good faith for something. So we're trying to balance the 2 things. So that's the action.
I was gonna say, we might as well finish.
I know. I'm trying to yeah. So that's the
Just in the interest of efficiency, let's.
Yes.
finish it.
So continuing the analysis of the Maston Brook grants, request approval of the grant applications currently in the pipeline. Kim will give 1 right now. We'll continue the board discussion. We'll put something on the agenda again for December. We'll continue the conversation. We'll bring a couple of proposals or things of subjects to have a conversation. And if we feel like we're somewhere, then we can freeze it. And if not, then we can continue the conversation in January. But I think that moving month by month doesn't cause the how long is it possibly going to be until we, get back on. So
On this particular thing, since I'm the chairman of this committee, I would like to involve as much as possible in the discussion going forward. And I would just say, as staff moves into it, one of the great things about the Maston Brook program right now is it's easy to explain. Let's just make sure that we don't way overcomplicate it. But I've been thinking about it plenty since Kyle and I first talked about it a couple of days ago, and I think we can really just hold things for them. Think about it. Consensus to move this item. So consensus to move.
Well, I think there may be discussion.
There may be discussion.
What's that?
There may be some discussion here.
Okay, is there discussion?
Yes, no, you go first. You go first.
This is Abbott and Costello over there.
More like Mutt and Jeff.
Yeah, I don't know that one. So a couple things. One, first, in terms of the words Jay just used, I think it's important for all of us to recognize that nobody should raise money with the assumption they're going to get a grant. The board votes on the grants. So if this were an automatic process, checkbox and go, we would make it an administrative process, hand it over to staff, and not have to worry about it. People would come in, hit their check boxes, and automatically get it. I think that when we talk about folks, and I think it really hit me when Jay was talking about when people in good faith go into these projects. Well, good faith should be that we're going to consider giving a grant. Because we vote on it for a reason. It's not an automatic thing. And if we choose to go the direction of automatic, then we shouldn't be voting on it. It should just become administrative. And you and I talked about this a little bit, but with the way you said that, it really struck me that it is a voted on process, not a automatic. And we have the ability for any reason, we can say this program, we're concerned that it's putting a $1 billion new playground in a neighborhood that is over here and is going to create issues somewhere else, and say, we're not going to move forward with a grant into that. It doesn't mean we turn away the money, the involvement, the whatever. So I just think that that's an important thing for us as a board to do.
I wasn't going to propose anything because I just promised Kim that I wasn't. That's one of the things of talking about is moving it up, because there's nothing in the pipeline that says I don't see some of them, and this is not a criticism. It's just been raise money, you can do it. So by the time I'm seeing or you guys are seeing it, it is like I can't. They've done all the work to do all of this stuff, and then to say we could vote no, but maybe we need to add a process at the beginning that's an approval to even move forward with that.
There are different pieces, but I think it also has a different impact on a program that is a $400,000 turf field installation looking for 20 grand versus a $40,000 park thing where it's a perfect 2020 match has a much bigger impact on that kind of project. So I think that that's one piece of this to consider. The other thing that I would just say is that while I think that we should consider changes and things, and we need to consider that, I am concerned that it could lead that either A, it could take a long time and we don't turn the program back on for an extended amount of time, which I think could be a mistake. And second, I hope we don't make the perfect the enemy of the good. By that, I mean, we're not going to develop a perfect program and how to approach this from an equity standpoint in 1 month or 2 months or 3 months. That we can maybe come up with a way to tweak it a little bit to help address some issues. But there are lots of issues system-wide that this kind of plugs into and touches. And we can't solve all of we shouldn't pretend to try to solve all of those through a massive grant thought process. So I hope that we look for ways to improve it, but not have to make it perfect and take forever to get from here to there.
Well, when I agreed to bring it up and go along with the pause, the only purpose to me that we were pausing was to just not give any new people expectations. And I didn't think that it was going to be a mechanism for making this go slow. And my vision, although this has not been said to me, is that we resolve this in a month or two, coming up with a program to.
I mean, that's really incumbent on us. How quickly
So
we-
this
It's
is not.
Sorry,
like we're
let me
gonna
let Mike.
Pause it, take a year to study.
That's
We're gonna pause it just to.
well, we're pausing it month to month for an unknown amount of time. I'm just hoping that we don't take too long.
But I think it's everybody's expectation that in a couple months at the most.
But again, that's on
This
us.
is a board, this is, and I don't mean to push it off, but this is the issue, is this is a board,
Yeah, I'm just encouraging us to not.
this is a board, program. Sorry, Bill, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm doing
You know, I'm the longest serving member of this board. And we have never voted no on a master grant program. Never. That's one. I
Staff
agree
screens
with-
them very well.
Huh?
Staff screens them very well.
Screens them very well. Second thing is I am concerned somewhat, I want to make sure that we do this quickly. Because I'm particularly concerned with those groups in the athletic community or other facilities that have bought into and invested heavily in adopt a field or adopt a facility programs, where they dump considerable monies and sweat equity into those facilities that they maintain pretty much full-time and take that burden off of us. And so I'm particularly cognizant of those folks and how we portray this moratorium, if you will, for a couple of months. Because, you know, spring's right behind us.
Right.
And, you know, we'll see everybody under the sun, baseball, football, soccer, that'll be approaching us with their springtime projects.
Or projects they want to get done over the summer.
And I just want to make sure that we don't discourage those efforts.
Yeah, I'm interested in this conversation in the future because I know historically, we've always had problems identifying Massenbrook grants. And a lot of the people who get the grants are our repeat customers who have activities that they want to accomplish and have a system to generate funds behind them. If we're going to apply a PROSA or something on the equity scale, we have to have a way to get to the audience that is going to have that need, because we've never been able to reach down into that pie and say, this is the small homeowners group, or this is the small building facility, or this is the small that has a need, but they're gonna have to spend the next 6 months collecting 5 or 6K to do what they want to do. Are we gonna wait for them and allow and give them some of our resources to develop that mechanism for ask?
I mean, I think part of the conversation in December, and this is not to push it back, is I don't have the ability to change the Mastonbrook process. It's a board process. I don't have the ability to tell anybody, no, I don't like this, or this isn't going to go. It comes in as it comes in. So if we want to look at things differently, then you guys have to tell me how you want me to look at it differently. I can't pick and choose who, because you're going to see one in December that's very similar to the one you saw last week that caused all of the conversation. And so what do we want to just push those all through? Do we want to exclude the what did you just call it? The adoptive field? I mean, I think that we should come into December with those things so we can get those out. Do we want to just have other ones? Like, how do we want to do it to get to that conversation prior to it? It doesn't seem like it's a big,
Basically,
issue.
though, we're just making a statement that we're gonna pause this. If somebody came in with a real spec that was real time sensitive, we also have the power to say, okay, yeah, we're gonna let it go in, because there is a.
That's our call.
So, right, we can unpause it for an individual, on a special basis, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So all this exercise is to set expectations for people for a couple months while we work through this, that it may be changing.
Correct.
And not have a rush of them at the last minute, because this might be going away. So,
I apologize for not being at the last meeting, but it might have been a good thing, depending on the discussion. I guess a couple things. I think we need to be careful about a pause, especially when it's something that we, one, haven't done, and two, the approval's been automatic. And three, what I just heard was, well, we can unpause it. Well, unpause it for who and why? And where's the equity? Well, use that word because I meant it a different way in doing that. So I think we place ourselves in a position that we may not want to be. On a separate concern is that I think the last time I was present when we, treaded into the Mastonbrook thing, we were talking about the equity, and we're talking about that it's going to take, we're working on PROSA. It's going to come out of that is far more need coming out of the Board of Supervisors than Mastonbrook ever has on an annual basis. Clearly. So I guess the question is, are we creating controversy over Mastonbrook when the real issue long-term in terms of equity is going to be a massive amount of money beyond what Mastonbrook has?
And are we, frankly, one thing that occurs to me as you say that is, are we applying a standard to the Mastonbrook grant that we don't have a process for yet on the grant side, that we say we're going to apply to ourselves when we're picking projects out for ourselves, that we haven't figured out how to apply to ourselves? In other words, it's almost like we're trying to create a process for projects other people pick at a time when we haven't even figured out a process for the projects we pick in terms of prioritization, where we're working through that with pros and stuff, but we're just not there yet. I wonder if pause is the wrong word versus inserting a it's going to take 60 days to process, up to 60 days. Is there some way to, in effect, not say we're not taking the applications in,
Yeah.
but to just say it's going to take longer to, as we develop a new evaluation process, it may take longer to process?
I think that sends confusing signals.
It does. I mean, I just don't know. I just don't know how to get it, because it occurs to me that all of a sudden saying we're not taking the application at all itself can raise
A lot of questions.
a lot of questions that, and when you and I talked about this, I hadn't thought about that angle of it. That makes me even less comfortable.
I don't believe that and correct me if I'm wrong, Mastonbrook folks, right now we're saying that is the four that we're talking about are the ones that we even have heard a peep at it. I don't believe that anybody starting right now would be even ready to be presenting anything to outside of the four January, February. Like, I don't think that there's a process by which it's sort of happening. I think that part of the thing is raising the money part, and maybe in December, we're gonna, have some sort of at least a temporary, or at least to narrow it down. Let's bring them beforehand so that you guys can see what they look like. You know, put them through the PROSA process before so we can see what the needs are. What do you want to see when it comes, you know, when it comes up? Because what I don't want is to have people raising a whole bunch of money to have our first one that we vote no on, right? Because there's one that's coming up. It's almost exactly like the one that we were having a conversation yesterday, but when Kim doesn't have the ability, or me, because of the way the Massenbrook works, to say that might not be a good idea. The board doesn't like that, and we're not going to do that one, but we're going to do this one. But we're going to do, how do we choose which one sort of go?
But I would think that when there is, I think the lines of demarcation are pretty clear for me in a lot of cases, where there's a significant change to a construction project that we have approved as a board as a project providing A. And somebody else wants to add B, C, D, E, and F, that project is no longer the project that we approved. Much different than fixing a backstop or adding a fence or putting a roof on a dugout. Totally different animals. What I think what we're talking about is the dramatic change in projects that we have already approved that changes the complex of that entire thing.
I 100% agree. Yes, I 100 full stop. I 100% agree, full stop. You're going to see next month another project to extend the same exact project that we saw last week.
Interesting.
But right now, the next one in January could be another project to extend the same project without any kind of, even just saying, let's focus this pause on that. Right? I think that's what in December we need to be talking about. Like, give me, like, what do we want to, because then we can change the pause to just be, I don't know what the answer is, but that's the.
Well, we're not going to meet between now and our next December meeting.
No.
And so I think reasonably, we should do what we need to do with these four and then hash this thing out in January when we've had enough time to really go through it and discuss it.
That's exactly what we're doing.
No,
No.
I think what we want to do is have 3 bullets, not 4, and resurrect the pause conversation in January, not do it now.
Recognize that in January, you're going to have another tranche of Massenbrook grants of people who have raised money in good faith of going through. Are we going to
remember the point though, that there are 3, 4, whatever in the pipeline. We're not pausing those 3 or 4.
No, they're coming next month.
That's right. We are just not allowing any new applications for the time being until we get a chance.
Well, that's what's proposed, but there's discussion and disagreement around that. Now,
Decide to
do the pause on.
Can't accept any of it.
That's right.
So you pause in January, that's 4 projects, might be 6 projects, because other people have started.
And that's my concern with this, is if we don't do something definitive, you're not sending a clear signal at all to the community about what rules are operating under.
Right.
So just thinking this through, recognizing that Massenbrook Grant Program is a program that we have bragged about, encouraged the schools to think about doing the same kind of thing, that we have walked around saying is a great thing of success. Look at the millions of dollars of projects.
Doesn't mean it can't be improved.
I don't disagree for this. If we're going to stop taking applications for any amount of time, we need to think through very carefully how we communicate why we're doing that. It occurs to me that given what we're talking about, though, the projects you're talking about are typically relatively expensive, and we're a small piece. To add B, C, D, E, and F to the thing. But there's a lot of projects that are going to come through over the that you're talking about that are not those dramatic mass big projects.
But I think that's where we need to work to define.
I agree.
you know, what that box is.
And so what I was gonna suggest is maybe even if we had two projects, it's not, we are not going to make the county and our programs somehow overwhelmingly less equitable with whatever those two projects might be. That might come in. It just seems to me that maybe what we do is have the conversation December, January, and I think we have 2 meetings in January this time.
Yes.
And even 2 in February. We have the time to think about how we do this.
Keep in mind, January is all about the equity study. That
That
is,
probably is
yes,
a good, that
Yeah.
probably well informs what we're talking about.
drives him crazy.
I,
We're gonna start at 4:30, just for, just to make sure we get it under the.
I mean, it is what it is. This is,
During the board, sometimes I had to show up at 3:30. I really wasn't happy about it, I guess.
I think there are simple solutions to be able to move forward. I think that one of the simple solutions that we could talk about in December is seeing it before. Because I think that, because I don't think it does, you're right. The Massenburg grant is something that is a great program that we do, and it doesn't do it a good service to be bringing projects that is like people that we're all like, no, but they've already raised $60,000 for, and it's saying no, you know, so the beginning, I think it's like, something that will know that the board will know it when you see it, to make those distinctions. And maybe that's the answer in the short term, is just bringing them before they raise 1 penny and have you vote on that. Do you guys think that this fits, or do you want to do another? And with that voting, it could be, Jay, can you guys do an equity study, or could you look into X? And you can do it project by project. And some of them are just, yeah, looks like a great idea. Let's just vote to push it through automatically.
So I would propose then, based on what you just said, as a counter to a pause, why don't we just temporarily change the process that we see it at the front end and can have conversations at the front end?
because I don't think we should change without having a discussion about what we're changing. I mean,
No, I'm
the
saying.
question here was whether we're going to do a pause or not, so that allow us to have a discussion in the absence of any new applications coming in and trying to figure out what we're doing. If people don't want to do that, that's fine. But what I don't think we should do is try to have a discussion this evening when some people are hearing this for the first time on what changes we're going to make. What I want to come out of this, if nothing else, is some clear direction to the community. So it's either putting it on a pause because we're going to discussing it, or we're not putting it on a pause, but we're still going to have a conversation, and you don't know what the rules are going to be in 3 months from now. Whichever one is ultimately fine with me. I have a preference for one over the other. But what I do think we absolutely have to be clear about is what we are doing, so people understand the rules they're going to operate under. And
I honestly
I don't think we
believe
should
I'm
spend any
gonna
more
bring
time
up-
talking about how this could change until we answer the question in front of us, is whether or not we're going to pause.
Between now and December, I really, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that we're gonna slow anybody down from anything.
Except that
So-
we're gonna make a public notice that we're not taking applications.
I think it's not I don't think it needs to be a huge public notice. I think when somebody comes in for an application, we can just let them know that we're not accepting them until after December. I don't think we need to splash it over the website and say the Massenburg grant project is dead or whatever. I mean, it might be 2 or 3. I mean, correct me if am I lying? Yeah, right. So that'll be coming up. I don't necessarily think that we weren't planning on, you know, outing this as, unless you guys want us to.
I feel much better about that, just saying,
Yeah.
we're not gonna even look at anything until January, February.
It's just an administrative.
Well, we'll talk
pause.
about it in December. We'll talk about it in
Yeah, I was
December.
gonna say,
Yeah.
you ought to have a discussion, but I don't think you can accept anything in the interim.
Right.
so.
Yeah,
So we gotta get that-
You're not
gotta-
gonna look at
gotta
any.
put-
we're gonna look at anything.
We're gonna look at the process in December. Yeah.
So how are you gonna communicate that?
I don't think I think on the individuals, you just tell them, we're not gonna be considering
Right,
this
that's what I would.
until early next year.
And don't raise any money.
And don't-
That doesn't mean anything, but
Because
this
of the
is.
board's schedule, they're not gonna consider anything until whatever, and therefore.
Yeah, I would
So
really,
just Replacing the word pause with, we're not gonna consider any intel. This is all just. a
I think pause is a much shorter way of saying that, for sure. Feel good. Administrative pause.
But it's one is almost an administrative process issue versus saying we're putting the.
Either way, we have to make the decision. This is this is our deal.
I don't disagree with that. What I'm saying is,
We have to give staff direction on what they're going to say when somebody comes in and says, can we start doing this?
I understand, which is I'm sitting here thinking that the administrative way to do, if we're doing it by a phone call, of whoever calls, there's a lot of people that don't call. I didn't call. When Burke Athletic Club did an application, there was nobody to talk to at the park authority. We went online, learned how to do it, and went and did it. So all of a sudden, there was an application fully done and being submitted, having never talked to a staff person, that's never going to be told there's a pause. So if it's a pause, and you're not going to do it publicly, it's not truly a pause. Because there's people that are going to see online, oh, this is how I do it, and go through the process. So I'm just saying so an administrative piece to this may be smart. But if we're going to call it a true pause and not take the applications, I don't think we can rely on just the phone call.
I think whatever you do, you can't take applications.
No.
Because otherwise you get an application in-house and they'll say, I submitted this under the rules that were publicized and in place.
Right.
Whatever
And there's
you
no,
do,
time
to
frame.
pause.
There's no
You have to
time frame
stop
on that.
accepting
But I think
applications.
you're right. You can't, because then you set an expectation if you do.
I mean, and I would be one who would say, I do think we would need to put a notice on whatever the Mastonbrook webpage is. I don't have a problem
Have a
with that.
Mastonbrook webpage?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
then we can put, yes, we can do that.
Yep, a disclaimer.
Yeah.
Yes, we can do that.
You can use the word that you're gonna take time to review. I mean,
I personally do not understand why the two programs that might come in are going to create such a horrible circumstance that we want to publicly pause it and explain to people that we're hoping to unpause it in January, because we don't know if we will or not. We
If the
don't-
two programs come in, let's say we have this figured out in January and they're ready in February. Are they operating under the old or new rules? Because they were halfway through the
The
process. when
existing
we-
rules as they exist right now say that we make the final call under whatever evaluation process the 12 people on this board want to make. And we have actually had debates about whether or not to give, I think there was the debate on whether or not sweat equity should count towards it. There was debates about one of the McLean fields, and the fact that the way it was going to be aligned and the goals were going to be set up meant that it couldn't be multi-field, multi-sports. We've had those discussions and debates. And I think the process as it's outlined actually doesn't say, I think actually conforms with what you're talking about. We're talking about how the board's going to evaluate it. The process the board uses. I just don't know why. I just don't know why we have to pause it.
I'm understanding that we will not have unanimous.
Sure.
consensus to move this forward. Do we have majority or a general consensus to move this forward?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we do.
Yeah.
All right.
For administrative review.
If you want to tweak the wording on it, tweak the wording on it. We're just not going to take any more applications for one.
Administrative
I want to be absolutely crystal clear that it is not Kim's fault that this was not a quick committee.
I just told Kyle that it was his fault, by the way. It's not your, fault. She hasn't even talked yet, yes.
So anyway, now Kim will be.
All right, I'll make this quick. Good evening, everyone. Kim Eckert, Division Director of Park Operations. So this evening, we have a Mastonbrook grant request from the Villa May Community Association. Go back to slide 3, thank you. Staff has reviewed the project and determined that it meets the current eligibility criteria for a Mastonbrook grant. If approved, the grant will help fund a project to install swings at the existing playground at Gilbert McCutcheon Park. Next slide, please. Seen here is the existing playground at Gilbert McCutcheon Park. It was installed in 2004 and funded through a Mastonbrook grant, plus donations raised by the Villa May Community Association. The addition of a playground to the park was consistent with the park's conceptual development plan dated July 2002. At the time, the funding for the playground was insufficient to include swings in the scope. However, the community has never lost sight of the vision for a complete playground. In November 2022, they reached out to the Park Authority to obtain a project scope estimate for the swings. Next slide, please. Oh, can you go back one? I'm sorry. The proposed project calls for 2 swings within a single bay to be installed near the existing playground. The approximate location is shown on this slide in the area marked with a letter A. One of the swings will be a standard belt seat model. The other will be a two-seater swing termed an expression swing. It's designed so that both individuals, one child and one adult, are able to sit comfortably and face each other while swinging. This promotes intergenerational play and fosters social connection. Next slide, please. The total project cost is $26,000. Project funding will come in equal amounts from the community and the Master Brook grant, if approved. Staff from the project management branch will manage the project. Maintenance costs will be managed through the operational funding that already addresses maintenance of the existing playground. Next slide, please. The fiscal impact of this grant, if approved, will be $13,000 from the 2020 park bond funding. Resulting balance, if funding set aside for the Master Brook matching funds grant program, will be $672,000 and some change. And I think we already turned it over to you for the last piece with bullets, the
Yes.
equity discussion. So we went.
We've had that.
It was so quick. It was so quick, you didn't even notice that it happened.
He would never go by Gilbert. It's Gil McCutcheon.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is in the Mount Vernon district. There's a lot of community support in this park. I'm happy to see this Master Brook grant, and I support it. Are there any other questions or comments about it? Consensus to move it forward? Can we just, you want me to just summarize the last thing?
Sure.
I think that's, we talked about at the last meeting, the name of the park being changed to Oak Park, and we thought that was a little bit plain. I think staff has done a great job with this Oakmont Park.
Ken's suggestion, because everybody believed that we were unoriginal and uncreative. Ken swooped in with his thing and suggested Oakmont, which keeps the O and the M as Oakmar, and Flint Hill next to Oakmont. So
I think it's a great idea.
Sounds like a winery.
Yeah.
We're gonna get grapes there.
you're not allowed to complain.
Any questions or comments on it?
Staff did a great job on
Yeah, they really did. Can feel consensus to move forward? Yes. Thank you very much, Kim.
Thank you very much.
With that, I'm going to not ask if there's any more business.
We're just done.
Yeah, but we're gonna go right into the communications and community engagement committee.
Yeah, right.
That's what we're gonna go into.
What's
And
next?
so we've got the
50 PM, right?
Park Foundation projects and funding update. And there's about 6 minutes.
Thanks.
6 minutes to win.
Thank you guys for hanging out
We'll
there.
feed you.
All right, I'm Anita Herrera. I'm the chairman of the Fairfax County Park Foundation Board. I think I've met most of you. And I am being supported here by Rich Hart, CPA, our treasurer, and Bobby Longworth, who's our executive director, and also by Margaret Thaxton, the foundation director of development, and finance administrator Brooke Nielsen. So we're pleased here. We're here to present to you the Park Foundation budget and fundraising status. We'll provide a overview, high level, and then some detail about the official and notable projects. So I believe you have attachment 1. This is the fiscal year 2024 budget.
Were you able to put that on the screen?
Oh, okay. Okay, so this one you'll see it's a comparative statement starting with 2022 through 2024, noting that the numbers for 2024 are through October 31st. And once it comes up, you'll see that the actuals, let's see, the actuals for 2024 are through October 31st, 2023. And these are being presented when it comes up on the cash basis, based upon revenues received by the Park Foundation, exclusive of in-kind gifts of goods or services or funds directed to the Park Authority. So, we'll tell you revenues raised by the Park Foundation through October 2023 is $983,300.
For comparison, last year's October 2022 figure was 732,150. This and other details will be emailed next week to the Park Authority Management and Park Authority Board in the bi-monthly report. Line item number 14 lists other projects that are not the actual official projects that have been approved as priorities. And these include 280,000 for the Aiken Community Park improvements. The Park Authority and Park Foundation have been working with the Aiken family since 2018 to define this project. There's also $169,126 for the McLean Central Park Playground. The McLean Central Park team has been a model partnership with the Park Foundation staff. Volunteer soliciting team identified leads that Bobby and Margaret cultivated, including a five-figure major sponsors and secured numerous grants, including 90,000 from the Mars Corporation and their foundation. Also, too, is $35,454 for the McLean basketball court. $12,255 for McCutcheon Park swings. The projects matched with Maston Brook grants like these are funded through numerous gifts, including donor advised funds requiring registration documentation that Brook is administering. Line item 17 represents our unrestricted foundation funds. These are gifts received without donor designations for a specific project, program, or event. These funds are important because they're required to pay for foundation expenses, including budgeted support for the Park Authority. Through October, 30,119 has been raised so far that is not designated. We are being proactive to increase these funds, these undesignated funds, in the year-end direct mail, email campaigns, and also vehicle donations are also typically donated as unrestricted funds. Line item number 33 shows that the Park Foundation has carefully managed expenses, which total $47,177 through October 2023. High quality pro bono services and discounted professional fees are secured whenever possible. So attachment number 2 provides greater detail listing donations received through October 2023 by project. Each year, Park Foundation official projects have been discussed with the Park Authority Management and Director's Office before being approved by the Park Foundation and Park Authority Board. Projects for which the foundation received donations can be divided into 2 types. There's each official priority project is designated by an asterisk. These are identified as a priority for the foundation's proactive fundraising efforts. The Park Authority approved projects for which the foundation is not actively engaged is the second type. These gifts are received, accounted for. We are grateful and thank them and recognize and disperse this funding to the Park Authority. Note, this is a recommended list to serve as a baseline for active monetary fundraising. It doesn't preclude supplemental projects when exceptional opportunities arise. The annual list facilitates focused planning, allocation of foundation staff, board and other resources, and it helps to clarify sponsors' expectations. The 2024, this fiscal year 2024 Park Foundation official projects report lists each with a fundraising target and total donations received through the end of last month. The rightmost column lists comments and significant funding sources, timing of mailings, etc. Are there any questions regarding the budget as presented?
The one question I have, not having much context around this, the projects that say there's, X goal for the overall year and we're at Y. Or one notable one was like the Rec Pack scholarships, which is the one up, and then the summer entertainment series. Do we feel? I have no idea if we are on track or not. I'm just trying to get a sense of where we are right now. Does that put us in a good position yearly, or are we behind, or what's the deal?
Well, I'll let Bobby answer, but essentially these are projects for next year, so much of the fundraising effort will be later in the fiscal year. And anything,
You've got it. In fact, Anita and I talked about this.
Right.
Rec Pack is a springtime mailing. So that's when the bulk of that funding comes in, as people are excited about helping kids go to camp. And what was your other summer entertainment series?
Yeah, I mean, really, the question was generally, but those were the two that jumped out at me.
Yeah, and I would,
Right on.
I would just add, for 2022 and 2023 actuals, if you look at those, we budgeted, for example, for the pack, we budgeted 30,000 in 22. Actual collections were about 32,600. 30,000 the following fiscal year, we collected 45,000, and the same with the summer concerts.
Any other questions? One question, have you talked to, Ryan Alcorn? Ryan is Walter's son, but he has started up a fascinating new venture called Grant Exec. And he has got a database of grants and scholarships here that would absolutely blow your mind. So you may want to talk, he's got grant writers on his staff. I don't know how he makes money and all of that, but he's been able to deliver quite a few, since he started his business, he's been able to deliver quite a few grants to various organizations. It's called Grant Exec, and I can get you Brian's contact information.
Answer is no, not yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he's a product of Parks. So, well, thank you very much. Thank you for all of your efforts. Yeah, Grant Exec, grantexec.com. Yeah.
We are meeting with Walter and the other supervisors, so, as well, but that'd be great to go straight to Brian. So we do appreciate any leads, any
Absolutely.
tips. And we also appreciate your giving. So thank you all. We're here. Our success is to help your success.
I appreciate that. Thank you for all you do. Sorry for making you wait around so long.
And with that, we're adjourned. Let's see.
You were right.
I might have to get here at 3:30 and
Not doing it?
Bill took care of all that.
I guess I'll read it. I'll have
She's
to
not
read it.
here.
Okay,
Yeah,
fair enough.
before I took over his chair, we were here some nights till almost 11 o'clock.
Well, I'm threatening to bring that back, I guess, the way these things have been done.
There were various chairmen, but we would start at 3:30 and we would end like at 10.
What the hell did you have to talk about?
Who knows? No.
Bill doesn't remember. It's kind of like a horrible.
But you only had one meeting a month, right?
No.
We good?
Every 2
Alright.
weeks.
I thought it was 3.
No.
I thought it was
But
3
yeah,
meetings a month.
yeah, when I
It was
came
3
on
meetings a
the
month.
board, there was 3 meetings a month.
Oh my God.
So
I have
Oh,
it
no
easy.
meeting. Oh, God.
That's,
All right.
that's what our board members used to get a stipend.
You guys didn't pause applications at the right time.
All right, we're gonna call what is today, November 8th, 2023. Park Authority Board meeting to order. Ben, do we have any speakers this evening?
Not tonight, sir.
All right, we'll go right in the administrative items. Administrative item number 1 is the board resolution to honor Michelle Wicks upon her retirement after 32 years of service to the Park Authority. Do I have a motion? And a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, well, Michelle is not here this evening. I will read the proclamation in the record for her. Whereas Michelle Wicks has served the residents of Fairfax County with distinction for more than 34 years, 32 of those coming as part of the Fairfax County Park Authority, serving in a variety of financial management capacities in the Business Administration Division. And whereas Michelle has been an essential contributor to many projects and initiatives, including annual contract closeout, spearheading the STARS recognition program, leading the reconciliation of the vendor process, and working through the nuances of purchasing contracts to ensure the Park Authority's responsible use of public resources. And whereas her exceptional example of public service, teamwork, personal and professional development, innovation, and leadership has been repeatedly recognized by her supervisors and colleagues alike who have described Michelle as a reliable go-to person for assistance, advice, and counsel, and for which she received a 2013 Fairfax County Outstanding Performance Award and the 2016 Sharon Bullitt Award for Outstanding Leadership, Excellence, and Innovation. And whereas Michelle's demonstrated commitment and support of her colleagues has fostered a positive work environment, elevated those who are around her, created a culture of collaborative and innovative solutions-focused approaches to challenges, and helped deliver excellent and fiscally responsible park system programs and services for all who visit. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Fairfax County Park Authority Board that it expresses appreciation and thanks to Michelle Wicks for dedicated and outstanding contributions to the Fairfax County Park Authority and residents of Fairfax County, adopted by the Fairfax County Park Authority Board on November 8th, 2023.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to Michelle and have a wonderful retirement. Administrative item number 2 is the recommended adoption of the minutes of the October 25th, 2023 Park Authority Board meeting. Do we have a motion? And a second. Anybody want to talk about it? All right, all in favor? No. You've used all your minutes this evening. Any opposed? Abstain, two abstentions. Any opposed? All right, with 2 abstentions, that motion carries. Administrative item number 3 is the proposed board meeting schedule for 2024. We did remember to have a vote on this 2 weeks ago with the one caveat of the June 19th meeting being changed, and just want to point out to everyone that that has been changed to June 5th. With that, do I have a motion?
So move.
Any second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Action item in the Mount Vernon District, action item number 1 is the recommended approval of the Maston Brook Volunteer Matching Fund Grant Award to the Villamy Community Association in the amount of $13,000. And a second? All in, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Don't clap yet. Oh, okay. The one to clap about is the next one. Action item number 2, countywide, is the recommended approval for placing a temporary hold on accepting Maston Brook grant applications.
So move.
Second.
And any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Wait.
2 nays, is that what I heard? So from Michael Thompson and Ken Quincy. With that, the motion carries. In the Providence District, action item number 3 is the recommended approval to rename Oakmar Park Rec Center and Golf Center to Oakmont District Park Rec Center and Golf Center.
No. Oakmont Park Rec Center.
Oakmont.
Isn't that what I said? Oakmar to Oakmont?
It's a district.
Oh, no district. My apologies.
Okay.
Oakmar Park and Oakmar Park Rec Center and Golf Center to Oakmont Park Rec Center and Golf Center. Did I do it right that time?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion?
Think you can.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Information, we got a whole handful this evening. Information on number 1 is the Fairfax County Park Foundation audited financial statements. Information item number 2 is the Natural Resources Management Plan as presented to the Resource Management Committee on October 25th. Information item number 3 is the update on park operations projects that occurred between April and June 2023 as presented to the Park Operations Committee on October 25th. Information item number 4 is the FY 2024 first quarter budget review of the general fund as presented to the Budget Committee on October 25th. Information item number 5 is the first quarter budget review of the Park Services Revenue and Operating Fund as presented to the Budget Committee on October 25th. And information on number 6 is the FY 2025 budget submission of the Park Bond Construction Fund as presented to the Budget Committee on October 25th. All right. Chairman's matters, want to remind everyone that this time next week, Wednesday, the 15th at 7, the Park Authority Board will be holding a virtual meeting to receive input on proposed fee adjustments. So if you are able to be there, we'd love to have you. I know Ken and I will be there for sure. Tim as well. And then 6:30 p.m. Friday, December 15th at Laurel Hill. Hope to see everybody at the annual Park Authority Board Park Foundation holiday party. Invitations will be sent out later this week, right? But did want to get that on everyone's calendars before we got too far along. The most important news of this week and evening is the 50th anniversary of the release of the Wild, the Innocent, and the East Street Shuffle, which is Bruce Springsteen's second album.
Yeah.
So time worked out that I was able to say that. So that's,
There you go.
felt like I wanted to throw that out there for the public record. Otherwise, this is our last meeting before Thanksgiving. Hope everyone enjoys their holiday, and we'll see you all in December. Jay?
All right. We should have a quick one today. All right, next slide. Okay, last week we had a community celebration of the opening of Lake Acatink Park Playground. It's a beautiful day for it. New playground features a variety of equipment for children. If you remember, this is the playground where the slide was broken and the manufacturer didn't make the part anymore, so we couldn't just add a slide feature. We had to remove the entirety of the playground. We heard kudos from people, not just about the playground itself, but by the speed and agility by which our staff were able to do it once money was identified. You know, we want to thank Chairman McKay and Supervisor Walkinshaw, Harity, and I believe Supervisor Lusk also voted to approve this project, made $300,000 possible one-time funding in order to replace this playground. So it was a great event. Next slide. I just want to take a moment to identify Park Authority Lifesavers. I know you guys have heard me say it before, but I can't say it, enough. We regularly put ours and the lives of county residents in the hands of 15, 16, 17-year-olds, and they step up to the park and they knock it out of the park every single time. We had a resuscitation reunion on Monday, to celebrate somebody who had an event at Spring Hill. We had one at Franconia, and just last weekend we had an event at Oakmar in the pool. And so this happens Oakmont.
There you go.
Soon. It's just, these, and I call them kids because they're not all kids, but these kids, it's just amazing to what they do. I say all the time, our rec centers are so well run, especially when it comes to the pool and any kind of an event, that if there's something that's happening, you want to be close to a rec center. The only better place to be close to is an ER, because these kids are just fantastic. A lot of that has to do with our Ellis partnership with Ellis. Our training sessions for our lifeguarding staff. I asked at the resuscitation reunion, I asked the lifeguards, that's the bottom picture, the young woman in the jeans and the black shirt, and the young man right next to me are the two lifeguards who came up and CPR and deployed the AED. The gentleman sitting next to Supervisor Harity called 911, and then we had the a Zumba instructor who's right in front of me, and the classmate that's next to the woman in the black and the jeans. When I asked them, great job, they didn't hesitate to say it's the in-service trainings. They said, we have so many, I can't even tell you, 250 training sessions with our lifeguard staff. They're required to take 4 hours of training per month to be ready to respond to emergencies, and they take it completely seriously. This is not going through the motions. So I just want to take, and I'll sing it loud for the people in the cheap seats all the time, how wonderful this is and just how much we put on these kids and how much they deliver for everybody every single day. So that's it. And I also wanted to highlight the beautiful partnership we have at Franconia Rec Center. Since 2017, the Pulley Center, Career Center has partnered with the Franconia Rec Center. The Pulley Career Center serves adult students with disabilities aged 18 to 22 by providing them with work experiences as their instruction. So these students have participated in a variety of services, litter collection, arts and crafts, landscaping, etc. And just a quote, our students enjoyed the opportunity to practice their volunteering, communication, and social skills in a safe and caring environment. Everyone made our students feel like they were part of the group. So it was a really great program there. And I believe that's the last one. Yep.
All right. Jim, you got anything for us?
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Ron?
Except one thing, wish everybody happy Thanksgiving.
I want to thank staff for working on the Eileen Darnett Park. I was unable to be there because of COVID, but I'm happy that it turned out well great, and we're looking forward to using the park in that area. I guess I want to remind people that November 17th is coming too. I'm sure Cynthia is going to remind us why November 17th is very important. So I'll leave it there.
Mystery. Michael? Basil?
All right, I was gonna say that we've said enough words for tonight, but I heard from Bill that it used to be different. So I'm thankful for that and happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Cynthia?
Okay, well, someone said something about something that is happening on the 17th. That's Friday, the 17th. And of course, that's the Ellie Doyle Awards. And you know, Miss Ellie is planning to be there unless something has changed. So that's going to be fabulous. And it's going to be at the Crystal View, of course.
You're kidding, really?
No,
Really?
seriously.
He's coming.
Really?
He's coming with a daughter, a granddaughter, and a great granddaughter.
A year ago this time, we had written her obituary.
See?
Because her daughter called me to say she was in the last stages and that could we do something?
Remember that.
Mhm. Yes. So,
She's like Jimmy Carter.
that's right. Yep. So again, I just want to thank everybody for the hard work that's been being done. We're almost there. Miss Jumi is all set to be the MC. So, you know, we did it last time. We don't have to do the MC this time, but looking forward to seeing everyone there. We do have a small part to play. But thanks everyone for all that you do. Appreciate you.
I would just issue some words of warm welcome. One of our newest Board of Supervisor partners for the park system, and that is Jimmy Bierman, who is the Dranesville District Supervisor elect. So we have already been reaching out and look forward to working very closely with him on items of mutual interest to benefit all residents of Fairfax County.
And I just want to say I apologize for not being able to come to the Ellie Doyle.
You'll take pictures?
I take pictures, please, because I will be celebrating my great granddaughter's birthday. So,
Yes.
Other than that, you all have a great Thanksgiving.
We got anything else? All right, good.
Enough words. Words. Enough words.
All right, with that, what's today's date? November 8th. I'll declare our November 8th, 2023 board meeting adjourned.
Adjourn before 11